hopefully it's easier to see than the last time we did one of these walkthroughs. So we'll start with the trash. We'll skip to bosses after a point, but there's actually not a ton of trash at Sunwell. There's most of the trash is actually leading up to the first boss, so we'll kind of go through that. You'll see some of the pulls, and there's going to be instances where this is from this is actually from Fusion, who's on our server here, but we're going to do some things differently than what they do. Not saying what they do is wrong, it's just that what we're going to do is different. At least what we're going to attempt. Our strategies will, be fluid, and we may change things. Also, I don't know if this is necessarily the most recent run that they've done. Probably not, because this is back from April. So, I mean, they probably changed things themselves.
They've been there like every day, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they've completely. I'm sure that a lot of what they do in here is not what they actually do now. But regardless, we're just going to use the video that we have here. So the whole video is going to be from the point of view of one of the tanks in here, Feral Druid. But we'll go over the different roles and what we're going to do versus what they did. So starting at the beginning, just the trash part here. So there's going to be these protectors here, the Sunblade protectors. Ideally, you never pull these with anything else. By themselves, they're not a big deal. They do a good amount of damage that will hit 8 targets. It's like a chain lightning that bounces, and there's not really any way you can get around it. Just making sure that you're healing people above a threshold. It's more important to get people healed above half, because it's going to do about 5,000 damage to them or so, rather than worrying about trying to top everyone off. So healing people who are low is definitely more important than trying to top everyone off, just so that follow-up one doesn't kill anybody. Again, ideally, you'll see some more of those later on, but ideally those never come with anything else, and if they do, those are always top priority. So if there's ever an instance where we accidentally get a group with one of those protectors die immediately. We'll probably, even if we get those with something else, we'll probably even pop heroisms just to get it out of the way. So first groups of ads here, these are independent groups. They all pull together, but not. It's 2 separate groups here. So as long as you're not moving too close, you won't pull them. These are made of different mobs, different types of mobs. I'm not going to go over like all of their abilities and everything that they do, but what generally we're going to do is there's these Kabbalists. I think those are the ones that they're marking here. These are warlocks. Those are generally going to be our sheep targets if they're there. Then followed generally by the mages, if there's mages around. But the warlocks are good sheep targets because they like to stand where they are. It's less likely that they'll run into the raid and have their sheeps be broken, and they're kind of annoying. They sit there and cast shadow bolts, and they have a dot that they'll put on someone in the raid that does like 4k damage and as a mana burn. So you have to make sure if that goes up, that gets dispelled. So just keep in mind, if not a lot of dots. I think that might be if I'm thinking about the only one in the trash pack. But yeah, if you see a dot on anybody, make sure you're moving that, because it's going to drain a bunch of mana and do a bunch of damage to them. So generally we sheep those first. There's 2 different kinds of priests. There's the Dawn Priest, which is the light one, and the Dusk Priest, Holy Priest and Shadow Priest. After the mages die, then we'll kill those. The mages are just like the mages from like SSC or the ones that blink into your group, and then AoE and Nova and shit. So we're just going to kill those first if there's any mages. Just blow them up. They might not even really be tanked, maybe just like a taunt, but everyone should blow them up right away if they come into the raids, just so they're not just spamming Arcane Explosion. Then what I would prefer is to kill the Shadow Priest and then the Holy Priest. The Shadow Priest does Shadow Priest things, but the 2 dangerous things that we need to worry about are he does a Mind Flay that chains to like 3 targets, and it does a bunch of damage. So he's going to be putting out a ton of damage to random people in the raid, and so we want to make sure we kill him. The priests themselves will throw up a renew. I believe it can be dispelled or maybe mass dispelled. Heals for a lot. If you have the ability to, there's not a lot of healing pressure going on. It's good if a priest can get rid of that. He also does Holy Nova, which heals and does damage for a good amount. So that's why we want to try to take care of him after the big damage pressure is on. There's the Vindicators here. It's hard to see him. You'll see when they get closer. He's got a big two-handed sword. He just does a bunch of damage. He mortal strikes. He cleaves. So generally, if he's being tanked, you want to position him away, like facing away from other melee. The hunter. I forget what it's called, but the hunter. There's a hunter mob back here. He comes with a pet. The hunter will scatter shot, which does the same as Scattershot, except it does a bunch of damage, as well as he'll put a dot on someone. I believe cannot be dispelled, and it does 100% of your health over 8 seconds. I think it's 25% of your health every 2 seconds. So it'll be a bunch of damage, but it's definitely healable. And obviously, whoever it hits is going to be more damage. So if it hits a tank, it'll be a ton of damage versus like a caster or healer. And then the pet has, I think, a frontal cone AoE he does. He can also be slept. So we'll probably just hibernate him just to make sure he's not running around loose while we're trying to pick everything up. So yeah, so generally expect about 3 to 4 mobs to come in. We'll sheep 2. You can kind of see when they do the pull here. It'll be about the same. I don't remember the order they kill it in, but that's the order that we're going to do it in here. Be making sure that we are not moving up and accidentally pulling the second group, because that's an instant wipe. Let's see if I can get to where they actually pull. All right, there we go. Yeah, so you can see the warlocks like to stand in the back, which makes them easy to sheep. But generally, everything can be kind of just grouped up. As long as the Vindicators are facing away from the melee, because their cleave can one-shot melee.
This video is Fusion Benediction 692 if you guys don't want to watch it all. FPS dropped.
Is the FPS dropped? Is there a problem with the video?
It's just very stuttery.
Change the frame rate. Hold on 1 second. All right, let's see if that's better.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. All right. So, what we're going to do different. So, what they do here is after they kill the pack, obviously they're going to pull his warlocks. The warlocks cannot be interrupted. So the best thing to do is just to get aggro on them and then just LOS pull them back. Because, again, we don't want to run up there and aggro. They spawn a Fire Fiend. I believe that those can be... what is it? Yeah. I don't know how much damage they do, but it's probably worth it.
Yeah, one note on those imps is they can also bug out and like stay up after wipes or the things and link to other packs. So just be careful if we ever do wipe and are running back.
Yeah, so they skip the group on the left here, which I don't like. It's easy. It's an easy skip, but it's also very easy for someone to accidentally step too far to the left and pull them, especially because in order to get this group cleanly, they have to pull it back. So we'll just end clearing the other group. It doesn't take that long to clear, and honestly, there's not a ton of trash. There's a lot of things that we need or want off trash, so it doesn't hurt to kill that pack. So new mob in here, you can see these patrolling rogues here. So these rogues are going to move in a set pattern, and they're actually linked with these groups. So if you pull the rogue, what's going to happen is the first thing the rogue's going to do is he's going to run over to a robot and activate it. There's a brief channel time before he actually activates the robot. So what we're going to do is we're going to mind soothe them so that we can get a little bit closer, and we're going to distract so we can set up, do a pull timer, we'll kill them. And if he starts running over towards the robot, we'll still make sure we're using instants or anything else we can to kill him. He should die pretty easily as long as we're ready for it. Now, again, once we pull him, though, the pack that's over to the right here, that's going to come with it at the same time. So mages, for instance, are going to have sheep targets. You won't be able to sit there and keep casting. You'll get your initial nuke off, and then you have to go sheep. So let me see if they can move a little bit forward here where they actually pull it. All right, yeah, see, they distracted it. You can see it dies pretty easy, but then the next pack comes right away.
They've got a big aggro range though, so whichever priest is mind soothing, you have to be really careful. You can't just run up and do it.
Yeah, it's 30 yards. 30-yard range for Mind Suits. So you have to do it max range. So same thing, you'll have your sheep targets, kill order here. Mages first, then priests. Vindicator faced away. And you can just move forward. Now these robots, they look like they are not able to be pulled, but you can actually pull those. Which you'll want to do, but only when they're by themselves, and only if it's in the path that you're actually traveling.
Is there a ballpark sun mode per run type of thing? Is it similar to Hearts of Darkness?
I would say it's close to Hearts of Darkness, but the problem is that there's much less mobs.
Gotcha.
So whereas with Hearts of Darkness, you have all of the Hyjal mobs and a ton of Black Temple mobs. There's a lot smaller pool. It's definitely more than Nether Vortex, though.
I think we'll be in okay shape for exchanges. Don't expect to get rings right away unless you're buying them off the auction house, though.
Yeah, there's also small patrols. These aren't a big deal. These are actually very easy. It's just making sure that you're ready for those. The biggest part about doing this trip to Calicos is at least on the ground level here, not getting ahead of yourself and trying to go too quickly. Because the patrols are very easy. The rogues are very easy. Just making sure that people aren't running up and pulling what they shouldn't be or moving out of position. But the trash is pretty easy. The first couple of pulls, man, people might die to random damage, but as long as we pull with like marks and everything, there shouldn't be any wipes. One thing I have to mention with the priest, the Dusk Priest, they fear. So just make sure that we have grounding totems in groups for that.
Tremor totems.
Or yeah, well, grounding might work, but yeah, tremor is a single target. It's not an AOE, so could work either way. I believe it is dispellable too, but yeah, definitely tremors are things that can stop fear. Just fast forwarding here and there just to try and eat some of the downtime up. All right, so they'll do another rogue pull. Again, that group comes right away, and you can see that he had channels there for a second, and it doesn't bring the robot. So it's not just like as soon as he gets the robot, it's done. I think it's like a 3-second channel or something that you have time to kill him, and he doesn't have a ton of health.
Is range doing that primarily?
Yes, range. Melee won't be able to make it over there in time. Also he sees through stealth, so Feral and Rogue can't go run up to him. He'll see you. Which also means you need to distract at max range as well as Mind Soothe. So this one is a little trickier with the rogue. The only spot that he has like a good spot that he comes up to, from what I've seen, is like kind of over to the right, and this wall that's right in front of him kind of makes that challenging. So um, need to make sure that if you're going for this, you have a distract. Everyone needs to be ready, because if he starts to run over to the right there, and then you are like too far around the wall, you won't be able to see him. You'll see him. You won't be in LOS. Now you're either going to do the, well, I guess technically the second skip, because they skipped the group at the front. I don't know how much of a skip I'd really call it. It's more of just a safety pull. This next group you can skip technically, because of the potential for Calico swipes. At least, and also because again we want loot off the trash. We're not going to do this skip here. We're actually going to end up pulling this group. We'll soothe the rogue, distract him right about there, and kill him, and then pull that pack. You can run by him, but we're just going to kill it. And they'll do some other skips here as well. This is probably not something we'll do until later. I wouldn't say it's a hard skip, but it's easy for someone to mess it up, and all it takes is one person to mess up this skip. So what they'll do is they'll jump on the bushes, and they'll jump on the ledger on the edge, and then they'll jump back up, with mind soothing a couple of the mobs. Now the reason I don't really care too much for this is that if you end up accidentally pulling, one of them resists, or someone moves too far out, or whatever, then you have to pull that whole group while everyone's all grouped up in the bushes, and it would be pretty bad. Also, if you wipe on Calicos, you have to redo the skip every time, which if you wipe once or twice, it's actually slower to keep trying to do that instead of just killing them. Now, this patrol, I believe, goes all the way back and forth on this platform level. So this is a patrol that can kind of catch you by surprise if you're not ready for it. If you pull a group and you didn't see them coming in, then it can be an issue. I do believe it is distractible, which can buy you some time. So you definitely want to do that if we end up pulling and forgetting about that pack, which it may happen. But still, all the same type of mobs. In fact, there's not any new mobs until after the third boss. And they'll do another skip here again. If you're just trying to clear quickly, this is definitely the quicker way to do it. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not going to save us that much time, especially our first few runs through.
Yeah, we need all those patterns and drops anyways.
And here, I think they actually do mess up. Yeah, they didn't. Well, one, he wasn't supposed to grow on the left side of that tree, and two, they could have just mind soothed that last one. So they end up pulling it anyways. and then they lose a priest there, and it's better just to pull it when you know what's going to happen. You can do it on your terms instead of having it just happen to you. And you can see that back only takes like a minute or so. It's not like a huge time sink. Go for it a little bit here. I think here they try again, but I think this one, someone was too slow, is what it was. They end up pulling this as well. And there is, I think, one more patrol that is up there as well. I don't know if it comes all the way down here or not. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, these patrols are not particularly dangerous. It's just if you happen to get it right when you pull another pack, it can be bad. But by themselves, they're very easy because it's just a mini group. Then move forward a little bit here. Same guys, same stuff. There'll be one more of the protectors here. As far as Calcos goes, there's a few different ways to do it. What we're gonna try, we're gonna do a 3-group rotation on Calcos. You can do 3, you can do 4. I like better how it works with 3. The only, well, not say the only problem, a minor possible issue with 3 is if people aren't fast enough on reacting to portals and clicking. But if everyone knows their group assignments, knows when they're supposed to be clicking, and we have general positioning around those groups, then when people get selected, it makes it easier for us to instantly transition into getting in. Everyone should be able to fit if we do a 3-group rotation. If not, then there will be it's going to be spicy for anybody that misses your assignment. So anybody that misses their portal, you can't just take the next portal. There's the rare exceptions to those are decursors, but in general, if you miss a portal, you just miss it, and you can't try to take the next one because the next group's going to be tight as well as getting everyone in. So you're going to have to wait until the 4th portal, which could be a lot of damage that you end up taking because of that. And this is just buffering here. Let me see if I can fix it.
Yeah, if you have awareness and you're in like a good general position with your groups, it should be good for the portal.
And they end up wiping once or twice or something. So let me see if I can get to the... This is the pull here. So before we go into the pull, I want to talk about the fight on a higher level from like a high level. So there's two phased realms for this. So there's the dragon realm or live fight or whatever you want to call it, the normal area. That's where you start with Calicos. And then there's the spectral realm, which is the other side of it. And those two sides cannot interact. If you're on one, you can't heal or DPS or see anyone on the other side. They're independent completely. And I guess you call it the hard part of this fight is just making sure that everyone knows when they're supposed to transition and who they're supposed to go with. The fight itself is not really too difficult. It's just if you can manage the portals, you'll kill the boss. So again, I think that having 3 groups makes that more simple as long as people can react quickly. So to kind of have an idea, I kind of made up some example groups here. So can you guys still see my screen? I don't know if it just showed the video or if it shows my...
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So this is kind of like an example of what we might have for the raid. Now, this won't be every raid. This is just what we might see for this coming Thursday. So obviously we don't have Tahina, so Blythe's going to help us heal for that day. Was going to be Jup, but they both have really good gear, and it kind of made more sense to have an extra shaman. So we're going to have Jup DPS, but good to know we have 2 backup healers in the event that someone can't make it. So groups might look a little strange. These are not the normal groups that you're necessarily used to. And the reason for that is that the groups have to be assigned in a way that the groups go together and they can benefit from the like independent heroes. So like group 4 might look really weird. We don't have like a hunter group. Hunters are spread between 3 different groups. That's so that the benefit kind of be spread. So to kind of give you an idea of how this looks more into what you would think with the portal groups, this is kind of how it's split here. So the tank on the boss is going to be Chetty on Calicos. And so I'll kind of go over the reason for that in a bit. And Palm is going to be healing Chetty the whole time. And what's going to happen is once we pull the boss about 10 seconds or so after we engage, someone's going to get hit with a spectral blast. And what that does is that puts you into... does damage to you and everyone around you, and it puts that person into the spectral realm. Then it stays up for about 10 seconds, and everyone has to click to go into the portal. Now there's a cooldown in the portal, so not everyone can go in instantly. It's not like a mage portal. There's an activation reset on it. So that's why it's important that because there's 7 to 8 people that are going in each time, everyone needs to be fast. So groups are going to be placed in a way that you're near the people that you're generally going to be going with, and that reaction needs to be right away that you're going in and getting in. So who gets chosen is random. The only person that can't be chosen is the main tank. And that's the reason why we have Chetty as the tank for the dragon, is because there's going to be a stacking debuff that gets put up, and we'll go over that more. And the paladin is the only tank that can get rid of that safely, or at all, really. So now it's important that everyone knows which group they're kind of with. Healers and tanks are kind of separate from the DPS, sort of. It depends, right? So what we're going to have, ideally, what would happen is we go in kind of this order. It would be, for tanking, it would be Safina going in the first portal, and then that would be with Village and Blythe healing. Like it'd be this group going in, and then group 3, which would be with Mosaic and Bio healing, and then group 4, which would be the melee, Sandra, and myself to create an aware. But we don't get to choose who goes. So what has to happen is the first portal needs to have a tank, and unless myself, Decranium, or Beware, this is an example, and this might not be every, but this is an example. Unless one of us 3 is selected, then Safina will be going in. If we don't get selected, then Safina will be going first. She'll be jumping in the first portal, which means that she'll be either going with group 2 or group 3. So, because both of these groups have 2 healers. So these groups are attached. This group 2 with the healer. So all of group 2, Village and Salandis, as an example, would all be together. If any one of those people get teleported, then they all go in. Anyone in group 2 are these 2 people. So it's important that you know group 2. You need to know who your other 2 people are. And then it's also important for Safina to know which groups are which. But everyone here is together. Same thing with group 3. If anybody in group 3 or Mosaic or Bio get teleported, all of you go. If this group gets teleported first, Safina goes with you. Now, if the exception to that is if group 4 or anyone in group 8 were to get teleported, then Safina would wait and would ideally go in the third portal. Not necessarily, not the second one, but the third portal. If Palm gets teleported, it's a little different too. So the only time that we won't stick to these set groups is, or necessarily the tanking order or anything like that, are if Palm, Safina, or myself get teleported. Those are the 3 things that can kind of change up how the ordering goes. But other than that, we just go by whoever gets picked. So if those 3 people don't get picked, then you just go with whatever group you're assigned. It's very simple. It's a very high chance that that's going to happen. So now if Palm gets sent, Palm's going to stay up the whole time. It's a higher chance that Palm gets sent as the groups go, because when you go in, then you're not an eligible target, and when you come back out, you're also not eligible for another 60 seconds after that. So as time goes by, or time goes by, there is a higher chance that Palm will get targeted as a eligible target. So if that happens, if Palm gets chosen, we're going to go in order. So it'll be group 2, then group 3, then group 4. Whoever can go, I should say. So let's say right out the gate, whoever, if Palm gets chosen, it'd be group 2. Group 2 all goes. The exception is Village. Village would stay out because we're going to have 2 healers, and we're going to have Palm and Blythe. Same thing with group 3. Let's say the first group went already. Second portal, Palm gets chosen. It would be group 3 going minus Mosaic. Mosaic would stay out. And then same thing with group 4. If we get to the third portal, and Palm gets chosen as the target, all of group 4 and group 8 is going to go, except for Decranium, who will stay out. So Priest, you just need to necessarily watch out for, you need to know which group you're in, and if you're the next in line and Palm gets targeted, you need to know your group goes. That's the most complicated one, is if Palm gets chosen. The tanks, really, it's more about me and Safina knowing who does what. So Safina will always go first as long as the melee and my 2 healers, myself, don't get chosen. If anyone in this group does not get chosen, then Safina always jumps in. If I get chosen, then she needs to wait until either she's forced in on the second portal or she goes on the third portal. Does anyone have any questions? That's a lot of info, but does anyone have any questions about like how that works with the rotation? Like who's supposed to go in?
The groups, or are we supposed to just memorize it?
No, we can have it'll be group 2, group 3, group 4.
And will you say, like, will you be looking for it, or should we each be paying attention to it ourselves?
Both.
Okay.
Both. But everyone needs to be quick about knowing and being ready for the portals. Again, the first one's going to come in like 10 seconds at the beginning. We'll have a general makeup of where people are supposed to stand, so you'll be close enough to where your group is. So, for instance, if you're in group 2 or group 6, so if you're anyone in these two groups here, your general alignment's going to be on the left side of the room, spread out, with giving the healer space more in the middle of that group. If you're in group 3, you're going to be on the right side of the room, giving the healer space in the middle of that cluster. And then group 4 and 8, obviously is all melee except for a couple healers and Sandra. And so the healers here are going to be in the middle of the room behind the melee. So you're not close enough where you're going to be getting hit by the portal, but you're close enough where you can react to the portal if it targets a melee. The same thing with Sandra. And Sandra will be back there.
So I can just leave then, and I'll just be near the melee, and if I get it, I'll just stand away and pop, right? And
Yeah.
walk in. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So that way everyone's close to where their portal's supposed to be. They'll do two things. One, it'll make it visually easier to know that it's your group in most cases. In less common cases, like if so Safina will want to be in with the melee too, and so will I. So if we get targeted, actually we probably shouldn't be in the very beginning, now I think about it. I'll probably just put up Thunderclap on the boss and then back out. What I'll probably do is I'll probably stand back by the healers until the first portal goes out, and then I'll keep up debuffs until the next portal goes out. So I'll watch my own positioning to make sure I put a portal near the melee, but not necessarily like nuking the melee. And then Safina, you'll be probably somewhere in the middle of the room, ready to like react to a portal. So if it's a melee portal, like up in the melee group, it's not yours. If it's in the back, like any of the casters or healers like way back, that's not to Cranium of Aware, it's your portal and you have to go into it. And am I making sense, or are people understanding or following me here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get the general idea. I'm gonna have to
One quick-
listen to that part multiple times because you said a lot.
One quick note is melee, even if it looks good, never run to the other side of the boss. Like, if you drop portals over there, we could really screw us over. So just stay on the open side.
Yeah, when melee get hit, they're going to be taking a big burst of damage from that. It's just what's going to happen. There's not really any avoiding it. He's a normal dragon. He's got a cleave. He's got a breath. He's got a tail. So you're just going to have to stand on the side. And like Logical says, don't go to the other side, because if you drop a portal over there, it's going to be not great. So we're going to be facing the boss with its side towards the raid. So it'll be facing left with its tail to the right on the far end. You'll see in the video. We're going to have the same opening positioning. But like I said, so Chinese going to be taking first. Misdirect should be onto him. Don't pump in the phase above. Most of the damage we're going to need to do is in the spectral realm. So save your cooldowns, watch your threat, make sure that you're not pulling aggro in the first phase. When you go down to the spectral realm, you can pull aggro on the demon down there. We'll get to that in a second. So let's start with the above section. So when the fight first starts, oops, here we go. We'll engage Calicos. Everyone has to move in. It's not immediate, but it's don't dawdle. The whole ring gets encompassed, and you get locked out if you are not inside. So you can't stand back and heal. So you can move in. Everyone can even move into the circle ahead of time, but you don't want to move too deep because obviously you'll engage them. So you can see you have like a couple of seconds. You can't sit there and heal on during it though. So pull the dragon back, turn him to the side, and then you'll see right here is going to be the first portal. It goes into a melee range group, hits the tank, gets knocked back, and then everyone who, if that was melee group, all the melee would go in. That would be myself, and that would be Beware, and that would be to Cranium. Again, this can change week to week depending on which healers we have if someone doesn't show up. So We'll try to keep assignments mostly the same, but they can change, so just be mindful of that. So when we go down, then there will be the other side of the phase. So we'll go over that in a second when he actually goes down. So there's there's wild magic on this boss, which does 6 different things. So some of them are not a big deal, but some of them can be big deal, especially early on. So they do good things and they do bad things. They can increase your threat. They can double your casting time. They can reduce your chance to hit by 50%. They can reduce the cost of your spells and abilities. They can increase your healing, and they can also increase your damage from critical strikes. They'll do like 200% damage for critical strikes, or like 300%, I guess you can say. So or maybe it's 100% on top of that. It's a lot. So biggest things you gotta watch out in the beginning are the threat generation one. That's the black one, and the white one, which does extra damage to crits. At the beginning, if you just start pumping in either realm, if you're like the first at the top, or you're at the top, or you're the first group and on the bottom, and you have one of those wild magics, you need to pay extra careful attention to your threat. Because if you pull, then it's possibly a wipe. If anyone dies, then it can be a big issue, and it gets pulled out of position, cleaves. Just please watch your wild magic. I think DBM warns you with those ones, but yeah, just make sure that you are being very conscious of that. The boss will keep putting up the arcane buffet here. So I think this is every 8 seconds, 10 seconds. I want to say it's like 8 seconds. Yeah, every 8 seconds. So what this does is it causes you to take arcane damage, and it's a stacking debuff. So each extra debuff on you causes you to take, I believe, it's an extra 500 damage. At the beginning, it's going to be very little damage, but as it adds up, it's going to be a lot more damage. And this is the primary reason why we're going to have Chetty tank Calicos, is because you can actually remove this with one of 2 ways. One, anytime you go into the portal, it removes it. Well, I guess I should say more accurately, it prevents it from being reapplied so that it falls off. It doesn't just instantly go away, but it prevents it from being reapplied so you lose your stacks. The other way is immunities. So a paladin bubble will remove it. Generally, I would say between 8-10 stacks is about where you're wanting to drop that. So what will have to happen is once we get to the 3rd portal, ideally, if everything goes well, there's going to be 2 people left up for a very brief amount of time, and that's going to be Palm and Chetty for just a small amount of time. Both of them can bubble, and Palm will just have to heal Chetty, and Chetty will have to use trinkets or whatever cooldowns he has to mitigate damage. There will be very shortly people coming back from the spectral realm, and that's why we're placing the healers centrally, is because it's very important the healers get in as quickly as possible, because the sooner the healers get in, the sooner they come back out. As soon as they come back out, then they're able to help heal. But that transition right there is going to be probably the toughest part of it. But again, as long as you're dropping the stacks, the damage is not going to be too big for either one of them. And Palm should be able to heal through that by just spamming heals onto Chetty. And he shouldn't even take damage himself. That's needed to be healed if he was full when he bubbled. So, all right, other realm. This is the demon realm. So this is the one where you're going to burn all your cooldowns. The boss is going to be fighting Calicos in human form in here, and he will start tanking this. In the beginning, it is possible to pull threat off of Calicos. So that's why I said, especially if you have one of those 2, well, debuff or buff, whatever you consider it, you can pull aggro pretty easily off Calicos in the beginning. Now, given time for more groups to come down, that's going to be much less likely because there's going to be more time, obviously, with damage and threat. The tanks will pick him up because he is tauntable, because Calicos can't tank the whole time. He does a pretty good job at tanking, but not for the entire time. So we'll wait until Calicos is hit by the stun from the demon. We'll call a taunt, or in this case, generally it'd be Safina going first. It may be me, but whoever ends up in there first, we'll make sure that we call out when we're going to taunt, and then we'll take it over. Boss doesn't cleave. What we want to do is we want to spread in a circle right around the boss. He has a like a shadow bolt volley that he does, and he'll just target someone with it, and then people around him, that person will get hit. So it doesn't. There's not like a cleave, but it's damage that you still want to spread for. If there's melee, try to give them priority for the back. But all the melee, you don't want to all stack right in the back because they're all going to get hit with Shadow Bolt Volley. So just try to form a semicircle and kind of leave healers at the front. Now, the reason we're going to try to stay close is because Calicos actually gives buffs to anyone that around him. So it'll be beneficial if we stay near him so that we can be healed. But another thing that he'll do in this phase, or this realm, I should say, is he'll stack curses on people. So he'll put Curse of Agony on whoever's down there, and this will start to add up because the Agony is going to stay there the whole time. What the Agony does more damage over time, like a regular Warlock curse, but whenever you dispel it, or if the person has it dies, then it just jumps to another person. It starts off like really low damage, but it ends up doing more at like the last half of it. It lasts for about 30 seconds. So there's weak auras for it, or I think you can have a wafer. I don't know if DBM does it for you, but you want to be dispelling about halfway through so that you're not just constantly using globals, because you could just constantly dispel it if you wanted to, but then you're spending all your globals just dispelling a dot that doesn't do any damage for a while, or any real damage. So you need to make sure that you have a way to detect when it is appropriate to dispel the curse. That's also why we have the group set up the way that we do for who goes in which portal. Group 2 has a mage, group 3 has a mage, group 4 has a druid. So that's why these groups have to stay together, and why the substitution isn't beware stepping out if Palm gets taken for this group, because we need a decurse to be in the zone. So mages, you're going to be doing a lot of decursing, as well beware. But again, make sure you're only set it to do it when appropriate. Otherwise, you're just spending a lot of globals for no reason.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the last 15 seconds usually.
Right.
Yeah, the last 10 seconds really hurt. It's good to give yourself that extra 5 seconds of a buffer.
Yeah. Don't push it. Right. If you do it a little bit early, it's fine. The reason you just don't want to the only downside of doing it early is that you're using globals when you could be doing other things. It doesn't actually hurt to dispel it early. It just is kind of useless if you do it too early, because it's not doing much damage. So if you do it 12 seconds because there's nothing else to do and you have a spare global, that's fine. Don't sweat it. Just decurse it. That's fine. Especially if like you're a mage and someone has it for 12 seconds and you want to you're using cooldowns and stuff right after that. That's fine. Just don't let it go past 15 seconds. Okay. Now you'll be down here for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, you automatically get teleported back. You'll be teleported back basically one after another, because it's based on the order you came in, which is why it's really important for healers to react quickly, as I mentioned, because we want the healers to be coming back out. The healers in the first phase, the healers that get sent down first are the ones that are going to be coming out to relieve Palm, essentially. So you need to make sure that you're trying to get in, especially if you're the first set of healers going in. Down here's where we're going to pop heroes. And then once your DF expires, as I said, you'll go back. Now, we'll talk about positioning for the realms. So in the very beginning, it's going to be evenly split left and right in melee. There's going to be like the 3 spots, I should say, right? After the first group gets sent in, the middle needs to be clear. What's going to happen is when you get sent back up, you get sent up based on not where you went in the portal, but where you're at when your timer expires. So if Sathrovar is in the middle and everyone's spread right around him, when that group comes back, they're all going to be in the middle. That will make sure that group stays together initially, and that will mean that it's easier for the other groups to find more room to spread out where they need to and stay together. Ideally, when you come back out, so you'll have debuff here, the exhaustion, so you can't be sent back down again for another minute. You could still be hit by the portals though. So when someone gets a portal, you can still be knocked back. So that's what I'm saying, is that if you're still up here and you're eligible to get a portal, don't stand in the middle. Because if you're standing in the middle and you're an eligible portal target, you could be nuking like a dozen people. So you need to get out. That will be the positioning for that's going to need to be more careful for the healer and the healers in the ranged with the melee group. But the other groups, the casters and the healers for like the ranged groups, you're going to essentially just migrate back to where your starting position was, whether that was the left or the right. But nobody should be staying in the middle. The only people that can really stay here are just, like I said, those three people. So in this case, it would be Sondern, it would be Tacranium, and Beware. And maybe Palm, if Palm gets sent early. But it'll be up to them to kind of find a good spot. When you have an exhaustion, it's fine to be in the middle, but you definitely have to move out so you don't get hit again later. That's something it's going to take some time, and I'm sure we'll mess some of that up. But just in general, try not to stand in the middle unless you have the exhaustion. Now, what happens here? This is right when he comes out, and this is something we're going to try to avoid. All right, when he comes out of the portal, first thing he does is he goes and he taunts the boss. Issue with that is that that immediately makes the main tank there eligible and throws that paladin into the realm. If we're going to have a taunt swap, say Chetty is getting to like 8-9 stacks again, what I would like to see happen is instead we taunt from the other side. We just turn the boss 180 degrees. You just go right under the other side, taunt, face the other direction, because the front side is more dangerous. There's more AoE that happens up at the front, and this portal, the fourth portal, is going to be for any stragglers. If you missed a portal, you were too slow, you couldn't get in, you didn't make it with your group, you're going in this portal because you have to clear your debuffs. You may even be, well, with depending on how the healing was, what order the healers went in, you may be dead by this point. Maybe not, but you certainly have a high stacks at this point. So just make sure that if you're going to taunt, because we have to, just make sure you're taunting from the other sides, because he taunts, and the first thing that happens is he flies towards the melee, and it's a good thing that they didn't get cleaved or breathed on, which could have definitely happened. And then this just repeats. It's not a long fight. You might only see the portal phase once. Some of you see it twice during a fight. Again, watch your debuffs or buffs. Make sure that you know which group you're going with. Very important to keep communications for this boss very clear. No, do not start talking about anything that isn't super important, because there's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of people talking about which group goes in, taunting timings, the healing assignment swaps for like people not getting in when they're supposed to go in. Like there's going to be a lot of talking. So unless something is like dire, don't don't talk. Like if you're someone's gonna be asking for an innervate, try to have buttons set up to whisper someone for innervate. Don't ask for it over comms. Like try not to talk during this boss unless it's something super important. Because there will be a lot of talking and people will miss comms. Even if people die, it's easily doable as long as you're not completely messing with portals. You lose some people, it's fine. What will happen is, so we may have to stop DPS more than likely on Calicos, even though we've used heroes on the bottom, because we have more time DPS in Calicos. Were you saying something? Sorry. Oh, I heard someone talking.
I think it's just the background noise there.
Oh, I have it on mute.
Oh, not you. Someone on disc.
So last thing is like when either one of the boss or the demon get to 10%, they enrage and start doing a lot more damage. So it's like it's likely that Calicos will be lower than the demon. And that's another part of the communication is that we will need to be asking on the other side health totals. There may be a weak or something that shares those totals. I guess I could look one up. I haven't seen it yet, but much like Cthulhu with the stomach. But it's important that we push them close to the same timing because the enrage will do a bunch of damage, and then tanks will start to possibly die. So that's the phase where we want to be using our last defensive cooldowns. That would be the reason for swapping, so that we can make sure that we can use a cooldown, because like Chetty won't have one there anymore. If we're pushing the DPS fast enough, where his stacks aren't really a problem. Once one of them gets to 1 or 2%, they don't actually die. So the demon just becomes incorporeal. So he becomes unattackable and he doesn't attack anymore. He just stands there. And then once you get Calicos low enough, he just stands there too. So they stop doing their actions, which will mean that if you get Calicos low, he'll stop attacking, but he'll also stop sending people to the spectral realm. So if you get him, at 1%, but then the demon's still at like 30%, then you better hope that whoever's down there can kill him before they get automatically ported out. Otherwise, you lose. Also, if nobody's alive up here, the fight's over too. So if we leave Chetty alone with Palm and they both die, then we wipe. So something else to keep in mind. What can help on this fight is a small amount of Arcane Resistance. If you resist a stack or two, it's a big deal because they compound. So the trinket is really good from the one you get from Kara, especially for tanks, because it has it has stamina on it, but also has Arcane Resist. So I would recommend everyone probably bring that just in case, as well as there's a craftable cloak that's really good that you can use that has, I believe, 35 Arcane Resist. Just having that, it's a good chance that you will wholly resist a stack here or there. And just resisting like one of them or two of them can make a big difference if you're on the top side for a while. Without hurting your throughput too much. So something to keep in mind. It's definitely worth bringing. I'm not sure if we'll necessarily need it, but definitely worth it to have if you can. So was there anything else I forgot to mention? Any abilities, or I think that's it.
I think you got it all. One thing I would just add on that when you end the spectral realm, like you said, you come back up. If for some reason things were messy down there and you were at the edge of the room, you'll come back up outside, so you could get immediately cleaved or tail swiped by the dragon. So just be careful. Try to be near the middle when you come back.
Yeah.
And if we call for stop DPS, that means completely stop. Don't auto attack. Don't leave a searing down. Don't wand. Just stop.
And this dragon's not even in a very good spot. It should be closer to that portal. It's a little too close to the middle of the room. Probably one of the times that the tanks got knocked back from a portal, they ended up moving him. Whether it's worth it to move him or not, that's up for debate. But because it's not too close to the middle, but if he does get like right in the middle, you definitely want to move him. Especially because everyone's going to be coming back in this general area. And as Illogical mentioned, if you come up in a bad spot, you might get tail swiped or breathed on, or you might get cleaved or whatever and die. So try to make sure you're near the middle for making sure that when you come up, you're safe, but also because you get the benefit from Calicos in the Spectral Realm. So if you're close, makes healers' lives easier too if you're all grouped up. Because especially because generally people be in groups, so group healing like circle healing is a lot more powerful when we can just hit a whole group that needs it. And here you can see the demon is not attacking anymore. This is what he looks like when he's just hanging out. I get to 42,000 or 2% or whatever, and he's just here. They're still fighting the boss on the top level, and you can see people slowly dying. But luckily they kill it with 5 people alive. All right, now on the way to Brutalis, there's a total of 1 patrol mob and 1 group. Just another one of these protectors, same as the other one. Not anything new. So another one of these guys, and then when you round the corner, it'll be 1 more group, just like the others. So they're sending him ahead in Viz so he can start the event. There's a RP event that takes a while. I would say for these groups, even though they're all grouped up, AoEing is not that impactful because the Dawn Priests keep doing their Holy Nova. So even though you're doing a bunch of damage, they're really just getting a bunch of that back as far as healing. It's better to single target them down, at least until the Dawn Priests are dead. And if there's enough to AoE after that, then sure. But the amount of like novas that go off.
Are you gonna want aim shot up on kill targets probably, or some other mortal strike?
The Nova is kickable too because it's a cast time. It's not like Priest, so we can stop at least a chunk of them.
I would say I wouldn't worry about the aim shot. And then we get up here. This is the area to the next 2 bosses. So what's nice is both Brutalis and Fellmister out here. No additional trash here. All right. So with Brutalis, he's actually not mechanically a difficult boss. It's more like a patchwork sort of situation where there's not a lot going on. It's more that there's a lot of damage and there's a DPS check component. So as far as like the number of things he does, it's one of the more simple bosses. So he does a couple of main mechanics. Let's say like 3 main mechanics. First one is Meteor Slash. So in a cone in front of him, and it extends for, I don't even know, forever. He will do, I think it's 20,000 damage to everyone in front of him, but it's split between everyone. So the more people you have in there, the better. But it also applies a stacking debuff that causes you to take 75% more damage, and that keeps adding up. So um, generally what happens is you only want to take a maximum of 3 of those debuffs and then have another group take them so that you're not just dying, because at first it will be not a lot of damage, then a good chunk of damage, and the last one will do a big amount of damage. But generally you're switching right after that as far as who it's hitting, so there's time to heal up there. So there's going to be 2 triangles that are going to be formed with the tanks at the front and healers and ranged DPS spread behind them. And there's a few ways to do it. There's opposite sides where each side faces each other. There is a triangle formation or Y formation for melee DPS taking one of the sides, and there's even like a 3 tank option where you change each one of the stomps. We're not going to try that one. That one seems like it could be kind of crazy with the meteor slashes, so we're not even going to go for that one. But there's technically at least 3 ways to position and do this boss. So what we're going to do is the Y or triangle shape. So there was an image. I was actually going to draw it, but I remember that Vec linked to this. So this is generally how we're going to position. So the boss will be coming from down below here, this direction. And then there'll be a group that is triangle this way and a group triangle this way, where the boss will hit one group but not both. And this allows the melee, whenever the tanks swap to be generally behind the boss. The healers in these groups are going to be on the towards the melee side. This allows them to heal their groups, obviously, but also make it so that they don't have to move and they can heal whoever has to move out. Now, the reason you'd have to move out is the boss will put a burn buff, or debuff, sorry, on people throughout the encounter. The burn buff starts small, but then it does more and more damage over time. And if you have the meteor slash, then you'll take more as a result of that as well. So getting a burn buff and then having like 3 meteor can be a lot of damage. So what you'll want to do then is so that you're not continually getting meteor slashed if you're in one of these groups. If you get the burn debuff, what we're going to do is you're going to move out kind of behind the melee, out of cleave range. The burn buff can also be passed from one person to another. Well, not passed. You can infect someone else. I say pass, meaning that you lose it. No, so you can hit other people and cause them to also get burned. The range for it's very small. It's only a couple of yards. So if you're at least 5 yards from other people, you won't spread it. Also important that if you're in the range and you have to move out to get to the safe area, that you're careful about it. You don't just immediately just like run in a straight line to get to the safe zone. You have to go around, or you have to like weave through to get to somewhere safe where you can go through. But yeah, I would say like, even let's say it doesn't feel safe. Let's say you're this DPS, right? There's people back, maybe more people back here or whatever, right? And it doesn't feel like there's really enough room to squeeze through. Sometimes you will be able to, but sometimes I think, oh, maybe that's not enough. There's not really any harm like going out and around here. He doesn't cleave or anything. So as long as you're not going through anybody, you could actually go like in front of the tank and just come out to the safe spot. So that'd be fine too. Just whichever way you can get around safely, do it. Obviously, if you're a healer stacked alongside, it's going to be very easy for you. You just move to the side. Now, this will mean there's less people to soak. So if we don't have enough ranged and it feels like too much damage for people to be constantly moving out, or let's say like 3 people on one side get chosen to move out, we may call melee to run in. There's space next to the tanks for you to be able to DPS and still be able to soak the meteor. So we may have to do that in some circumstances, but generally that shouldn't be needed. If we do that, then that would be typically Chetty would be the one who would fill in whichever side that's at. Now the burn debuff can be removed with invulnerabilities. So you can cloak out of it, you can block it, you can bubble it. So and you should if you get that. So any paladins, mages, or one rogue, all need to make sure that you're removing it if possible, because it's a total of 55,000 damage. So if you can stop that from having to be healed, it's great. Now, generally, whoever is responsible for healing these people, and the reason I kind of want it to be more where if there's a way to be more central, if you're able to, I don't know how far the melee can move up, but if there's a way for the range to be even behind the melee where the healers from both sides can hit them, that's probably preferable, because the side that is not where the boss is not facing, it's much easier for those healers to heal up the burning targets. So if you're here, right, but the boss is facing to the left, these healers are going to be preoccupied with healing the meteor slash and keeping the tank alive, because the tank's going to be taking a ton of damage. So they're going to be spamming heals on our side when it's their turn. The other side, if they can reach, there might be a healer at the front or two who can heal the other side, but generally it would be easier for them to be able to heal the burn targets. So melee, if they can push in while still keeping 5-yard distance, if the healers are ranged can actually get behind the melee, I think that would be better, because they should be in range of a couple of healers on both sides at that point. Then
if you have your healers near where the tank is at the front,
yeah,
you should be able to reach across to the other party no problem, from what I saw.
Yeah. But so the healers in the front, though, are going to be generally dedicated tank healers. So like at the very front is probably going to be Beware and Palm, because they're always going to heal whichever tank is taking damage. So having, if I'm here and Beware's here, I don't really want, if I'm taking damage, I don't really want you healing the other target. I want other healers covering that. So that's what I was saying. If they're on the side, yes, the very front one can heal the opposite way, but it's better if they can be covered by both sides, which should be possible. So we'll work out the exact positioning, but there should be a way to do that with pushing the melee in and keeping their distance. Now, if melee get targeted, you guys don't move. So you should be able to have like a set spot where you just like hang out in DPS. You shouldn't like the melee DPS shouldn't have to move. So once you get in, you guys find like a good 5-yard distance between each other while all being as close as possible to the boss. You have to have like kind of a triangle yourselves, right? Even if you get the flame, you just keep DPSing. You don't have to go anywhere. You're already in technically the safe area. And then the last major ability. So those are the two of the three. The last major ability is Stomp. So Stomp is an ability that he'll do every like 30 to 35 seconds on whoever the primary target is. So Stomp does two things. So if a tank has burn on them, it will remove the burn. Not the meter slashes, but the stacking burn dot itself. Also, it reduces their armor by 50%. So they'll take a lot more damage, and that's for 10 seconds. Now, additional armor bonuses are not affected by that. So things like Iron Shield Potion, for instance, still give you armor benefit. But your armor itself, like on your character sheet, like your actual armor, is reduced by half. So there will be some times where we will be able to taunt right after the stomp so that it's not an issue. But there will be times that we will not be able to, and we'll have to actually tank during the stomp. It depends on the timing of the meteor slashes. So sometimes what we'll do is, like, let's say there was a third meteor slash that just happened. Instead of taunting, and say there's a stomp that's going to be happening sometime in like the next like 5 seconds. Instead of taunting immediately, what we'll do is we'll wait for the stomp to happen and then taunt right away after that, so the next meteor slash doesn't get hit. So the tanks will need to be calling out who is going to be taunting when. And then we'll try to call it out early. I'll try to warn the healers so that they can start pre-healing, because the damage is a lot that people take, or so the tanks take. So the tanks are going to take just a ton of constant damage. There'd be less evasion in Sunwell, so there's less chance that you're just going to avoid just a bunch of attacks. He dual wields, and he does just a bunch of damage with Mayhand as offhand too, and he attacks quickly. Doesn't parry haste, but he doesn't need to. So it's possible for a tank just to die in a second. Like, so you need, when a tank is getting ready to taunt, you need to start healing. Even though he's not taking any damage, if I say I'm taunting in like 3 seconds, start loading up a heal, it's going to start hitting in 3 seconds.
Are you guys going to be doing up to 3 slashes and then taunt?
You have to. Yeah, the reason is if you go after, well, the first one you can do after 2 because it's 2 slashes, and then there's a stomp that comes in before the 3rd slash. So that one you could taunt because the other side doesn't have meteor slashes. So the first one we'll do it right after the stomp. But after that, you have to wait until at least 3 meteor slashes. You cannot do it before then, because if your debuff will not have fallen off by then. If you only get 2, so let's say the group has 3, and then you've taunted off, and you get 2 of them. If the other tank taunts back before the 3rd meteor slash, theirs will not have fallen off, and now you have 4. And then it's a wipe because now both of them can't reset. Because even if the other tank taunts back, well, then they have to get to 5 stacks before yours falls off. So it can never get to. You always have to do after 3. You have to do it between 3 and 4. And if there's a stomp that's timed in between there, then you can wait until the stomp happens before the 4th meteor slash.
Okay, so we'll watch for the 3, which is normal, but like you guys are gonna pre-warn before you taunt, so then that way everybody could start pre-hotting and shielding, etc., and rotate all their heals basically.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, some people will have to stay. Not everyone can switch over and pre-heal, obviously, because then the current tank will die. But you can get some of them ready for it.
Yeah, it's just like, for example, like I'll get my hots rolling, and then the priest can get renews up and going, so then that way we have some hots ticking, so that, because that in between damage is gonna really add up.
Yeah. Yep. And then yeah, it'll always be after the 3rd, well, except for the first taunt, it'll always be after the 3rd meteor slash. Whether it's right away or not will depend on the stomp timing. So if there's a stomp that's going to hit between the 3rd and the 4th, then we will let that hit that target before taunting. That way there's no time to be trying to heal a stomped target. Sometimes it will be unavoidable, but there are periods of time where it's possible. So where do they actually start doing the boss here? This is at 126. I think they wipe once or twice here, but this is the kill here. So what they do is they're doing an opposite side. So they're going to spin the boss 180. They have their melee on, I guess, from his point of view, it'll be the right side, and then they have a safe side at the left. That's a just find a way to do it. The only real downside to doing it that way is there will be periods of time where some of the melee will parry. There's no parry haste, but it does reduce their DPS. But it is an easier setup for people to like stand. There's not the safe zone is clearly defined. So let's say like we were turning the, hold on, before I go too far out here. Let's say we did have the boss in like a Y shape, or I'm just saying it without his weapon here. So let's say we're here right this way, and the other group's more like here. You see how all the melee can really kind of fit in, like in the box? It's not unreasonable for so instead of let's say this healer gets debuffed, instead of him just standing right here, he could actually stand back by where these totems are, like right, and both healers on both sides would be able to hit him, is what I'm trying to say. And then whoever is not on the tank's side, especially if you're farther back, would be able to heal them. Now, we do want to make sure we have healers that are assigned to watch over those people, because if we just free for all it, then people are going to die. So we need to make sure that we have people that are charged with watching those people. And if there are multiple people over here, which there will be. There'll be generally times where there's 2, maybe 3 people that have it. If you can stand close to each other, but not enough to where you're going to get it back to each other, just make sure you're spreading like 5-10 yards apart. That makes it easier for things like chain heals and stuff to hit you. So just don't spread all over the place. Just try to be near other people with the debuff.
And the burn starts off weak and gets really strong at the end, so you guys pick up your healing at the end, otherwise their health will drop quick.
Exactly.
Yeah, so save Hellstones for the later part, unless you're going to die, obviously. Save Hellstones and personal cooldowns for the end of it.
All right. And so here you can see, this is what I'm talking about. This is the beginning. This is kind of how it always goes. So there's 2 meteor slashes right now. There's going to be another one, but before that third one comes up, there's a stomp. So they can do one of 2 things. They can either get stomped, wait like 5 seconds for the third meteor slash, or they can just taunt. Since this is the first one, the other group does not have any meteor slashes, then you always just taunt. So after the first stomp, it's always going to get taunted right away. Or it should get, there you go. It's kind of delayed. But yes, after the first taunt, or after the first stomp, it should be taunted. At this point, you cannot taunt before the third meteor slash. And you'll know if you're not keeping track of which one he's on or what he's doing, you can always look at your own debuffs. So like, you know that yours is going to be ending in 6 seconds, and the next meteor slash is in 11 seconds, right? Or it could be earlier. But what's going to happen is you need to wait. So technically, if they wanted to, this tank could taunt there, perfect, because the debuffs fell off, and the other tank got hit with the stomp. So once the stomp happens, as long as your debuffs are gone, you can taunt back. So just pay attention. If the next meteor slash is going to time in before your debuff wears out, then you cannot taunt. So, but you can see already there, the first 2 stomps are almost completely negated. And then this third one is going to happen after the meteor slash, so you'll get 3 meteor slashes. But he still waits. He still waits until the stomp actually happens, and then taunt. So just with taunts, you don't have to worry about the first 3 stomps. Now, there is a brief moment where you have to wait for it to actually hit before you taunt. So there will be a small moment where you will have stomp on you that you could possibly die, and it could happen right away. But this timing is mostly going to be between the tanks. We'll be trying to call it out. There shouldn't be a lot of need for comms on this fight, really. Even if you get the burn, you're going to move out to a designated area, and then people will be able to see, especially if you have your UI set up in a way that shows it. Like his UI shows people with burn have this glowing, what I'm going to call it, dotted line. But if you have your UI set up to show it, then it's easy to keep track of who has it and making sure that you're healing those people. But yeah, those people don't need to call out to people if they have it. They're just going to move to the designated area. Melee life is very easy. You just sit there and DPS the whole time. Healers just need to know who's tanking and who's going to be tanking shortly, and whether or not that person's going to have stop. So most of all the communication is going to be between the 2 tanks.
Who are the 2 tanks in this scenario?
It's going to be me and Sully.
Okay.
And you can see how hard he hits like 12 seconds back or whatever. The tank was at like 4%.
Yeah, so
instantly.
And the burn, I said, can happen on the tank, which happens here. So it is possible for the tank to have it. Now, again, that does get cleared if they get stomped. So you don't have to worry about stomp and the burn being on at the same time. So it's generally
It'll
not
take
much of an
more if
issue.
they have more meteor slashes from the burn too. So gotta watch them.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see how fast these when he's tanking, the red text down here might be hard to read on the restream of his stream, but those are hitting anywhere from like 4 to 8k, and each time it pops up, he's like getting hit real fast for that damage. Yeah, the reason this one's going to be me and Sully is because we have to wear full mitigation, but you also have to keep in mind that this is a threat-intensive fight too, because you have to kill him before the enraged timer. A prop paladin in full mitigation gear is not going to be doing any threat. What we'll probably have as well is we'll have Safina start the fight, and I'll be the first to taunt after the first stomp, because my potato set's really bad. So hopefully she builds enough of a threat lead that I can kind of just maintain off of that. But yeah, just watch your threat, don't pull. It's a DPS race, but as a DPS, you only gotta watch two things as a DPS. You gotta watch, did I ever get a burn? If I get a burn, I just go stand in the burn spot. Or if you're melee, you don't even move. And don't pull aggro. That's all you gotta do. Your job is very easy. It's much more stressful for healers. And then for tanks, there's the coordination. But as a healer, your job in this fight is very easy. Just don't pull threat.
If you do get burned, you want to get to the safe spot, but it's not a rush. Don't run over anyone. Just carefully go there without hitting anyone.
I believe DBM has an option to mark the burn target too, right?
It should. I would imagine so. Now it's a pretty straightforward boss. I wouldn't say it's simple. Probably one that we'll end up wiping on more than the other. There's of the first three bosses, we'll probably wipe more on this boss. Does anyone have any questions, any input, or anything?
Are we gonna use Amplify Magic on the tanks like they did, or nah?
Yes. In general, I think Amplify Magic on the entire raid is beneficial.
I think it's on everything besides Caligos. That's pretty safe.
Yeah, Calicos, it's not necessary, and if you leave a couple people up at the end, it can be kind of spicy with the added damage. But yeah, generally Amp Magic on the whole raid, even though it helps some magic damage against you, the amount that it adds to plus healing is worthwhile. All right, next boss is Fellmister. So when we get to where they actually do a successful attempt here. So there's no trash. Fellmister, once you kill Brutalis, his like blood leaks into the ground, and it makes the dragon into a skeletal dragon, and so our positioning is going to be similar to this, but it's going to be a little bit different, and I'll explain. So when we pull, we're going to do the same thing, pulling basically identical to how this looks. The reason that there's multiple groups here for Fellmister is there's a ability called Gas Nova. Gas Nova gets placed on the entire raid, and it does 3,000 damage and 1,000 mana leech like every couple of seconds. It is magic dispellable, so it has to be removed from everyone quickly, not just because of the damage, because that's a lot of damage, but also because of the mana burn. If you don't get off everyone quickly, it's a big deal. So what you have is Priest Mass Dispel. That's the most efficient way to get rid of it. But anyone that can dispel should. So the paladins also will need to be single target dispelling. They'll have someone dedicated to dispelling me at the front, because I'm not going to be in range of any mass dispels. But anyone that doesn't get hit needs to be dispelled. Whether you hit him with a mass dispel or it misses or whatever, everybody has to be dispelled. So when that happens, the shamans, and beware, it's your main duty to make sure that you're carrying the healing during every time that happens, because all the priests and Palm are going to be dispelling for a moment. But that's why they have everyone stacked in these groups. The reason we don't have everyone stacked together is there is another ability called Encapsulate. So randomly someone, it could even be the tank, anybody, will get chosen to be imprisoned. So you get lifted up in the air and you start exploding and doing a bunch of damage to anyone within 20 yards of you. You can immune out of it, but you have to wait until you, if you're a rogue or whatever, you're trying to get out of it, you need to wait until it actually hits you to remove it. But if it can't be removed, everyone needs to move. And I would say everyone needs to move, even if someone does have an immunity, instead of trying to figure out, is that someone that can get out of it? I think if you just have the plan in your head that if someone gets near you, you just move. And what we're going to do is we're going to have different positioning and different movements than they do here, because we have the benefit of more priests. Here they only have 2 priests, so what they have to do is they have 2 groups on each side, and they're trying to stay close enough where Mass Dispel just barely clips on the edges of both of those groups, and it'll hit the most people. It won't hit everybody, but it'll hit enough. So we'll get 20 people out of the 25-person raid, and they'll just manually dispel the other 5. We have 3 to 4 priests. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a melee group still here. Max like melee range. So these guys that are up front, too close. You want to be however close it is as your max range. And then if anyone gets in your group gets encapsulated, then you just immediately run to the other side. You run right underneath, right through the other side. And then you run until you don't take any damage. Encapsulate should end quickly after that, and then you just DPS from that side. So you just go back and forth, kind of like Night Bane. There's some Night Bane similar elements on this fight. So like Night Bane, you run to their side, and then you DPS from their side. The back 2 groups are going to be evenly split with like healers and DPS. Group makeups are going to be very similar. If either of those groups get an encapsulate, what you're going to do is you're going to run right over to the other ranged group, because that way you're running away from the AoE damage and you're running together towards healers. So the other group needs to make sure that they're healing you as you're running. After the encapsulate ends, or someone immunes it or whatever, you go right back to your original spots. So melee will just go from one side to the other. They don't need to like return. So if they get hit here, they'll just run over to the other side. And if they get hit again, they'll just run back over. They don't need to keep going back and forth. The 2 ranged groups will stack with each other when the encapsulate hits, and then you will return back to your original spots. So we'll have 3 groups. We'll have 3 priests that are assigned to Mass Dispel those 3 groups, which means everybody should get hit because they're all stacked. The only person that won't get hit is the tank. So that's going to be up to Palm to dispel the tank. And that's it. That should cover everyone very easily. So instead of having 4 positions like they do here, we'll have 3 with a transitionary melee group. There'll also be steady damage that goes out during the fight. And there's going to be a, what's it called? Corrosion that's cast on the tank. And that causes them to take 100% extra damage. So when that happens, which is not too infrequent, then need to take extra care with putting extra heals into the tank, as well as that's the time to use like cooldowns and things like that. So a trinket or last stand or shield wall or whatever. But yeah, you can see the corrosion coming in. So Gas Nova hit, Mass Dispel, corrosion on the tank, heal the tank, and then you're good.
Yeah, you can see in this video that Mass Dispel is a massive range. We don't need it for our strat, but if things ever go wrong, you can just see that from here. Really big.
Yeah. So that's the ground phase. I don't think there's any other abilities I'm missing in the ground phase. Oh, he does. So he does cleave. Does not have a tail swipe, so you don't have to worry about that. But we're not going to be standing directly behind him anyways. But it means you can be on the back leg So once he goes up in the air, so first thing when he flies up in the air, being conscious of other elements, range DPS you want to keep DPSing while you can. You'll be able to DPS for a few seconds, so you want to put it in here. What you need to be mindful of is he'll do these this beam that will follow a random person. Looks like DBM automatically marks you, which is great. This will follow you wherever you go, and so generally you want to try to take it towards the firewall here or away from the raid. From this gas does damage, as well as it will spawn skeletons. He's going to do 2 of these, so it'll follow one player, and after a brief while he'll stop, and then it'll target another player. So you want to kind of stay spread out in this phase. You want to make sure not everybody's all grouped up, so you don't want to be stacked tight in your groups, because you can hit other people with this. So person gets hit with the skull, I-beam chases them, they just take it away from the raid. Do not start AoEing right away. There is no rush to AoE these skeletons. Wait for Charity to pick them up, wait them all get grouped up, and then we can AoE. No rush on this, so don't DPS early. Slow traps and slow totems do work. So next ability, it's kind of an Onyxia type ability. He'll go to one side. There's one of 3 positions. Either it'll be the front, the middle, or the back. We'll use markers, like landmarks for this, so people don't have to think about what's north and south or top and bottom. We're going to use the tree side because there's a big tree right here. Fire side because there's a big wall of fire, and middle. Well, that's self-explanatory. So if we say go to tree, you go to the tree side. If we go to the fire side, or stay in the middle. Generally, just go one direction or the other. I don't think we'll ever call middle. It'll either be go tree or go fire. Here, hit the middle so you can see, but we would have said just go tree here. So when I say go tree, just go all the way over to this side. This poison here, if you get hit by this, you're permanently mind controlled. If anybody gets hit by that, we just have to kill them. But you can see where he is. He kind of like perches. When he's standing like this, we kind of want to stand near the middle in case we need to move. And then wherever he rotates to, then we want to go away from there. So those 2 middle patches, pretty easy. This phase, there's like no healing to do once skeletons are dead. So plenty of time to regen. So it's better to have more throughput gear on this fight than necessarily trying to min-max your regen, because the only time you're really healing is when he's on the ground. And every time he goes up in the air, you have like 30 seconds of just standing around to just get all your mana back, basically. He does 3 of these passes. Plenty of warning. Nobody should get hit by that. And then when he comes down, threat does not reset. Threat goes back to how it was. Also, I believe that there's some issues with him coming down and not being able to soul shatter right away. Like if you try to soul shatter here, it might not hit. So try to be mindful of that if you're a warlock.
Yeah, any dots in the air obviously cause threat, so watch that.
Yeah. Yeah, while you're still supposed to DPS, just make sure that you're not getting ahead of the tank. And then you just reset in the positions, and then just repeats the phase over again. You do this over and over until he's dead. Any questions? Any comments? Any suggestions? Anything at all? Oh, I think I sort of mentioned this, but there is ongoing damage throughout the fight too, while he's on the ground. There's an AoE damage that hits the whole raid for 1,000 damage every 3 seconds. So there's consistent some damage going on during this phase, but it's not a ton. It's more of like a nuisance, especially combined with Gas Nova, which if you don't dispel it in time, or the Encapsulates. So that's supposed to kill you itself. So I don't really like this where they all run out in the middle of nowhere, because they're all taking damage, but they're like running away from the healers. So like those guys are getting hit still, possibly. Like the healers are trying to heal, but they're all spread out. If they had just run to the other side, then they could have been running towards other healers. So that's why I don't like them running out. I prefer every group knowing exactly where we're supposed to run to, and that you all kind of run together. So again, this phase, make sure you're spreading out. These guys all standing together at this point is bad. If you get the skull on you, try to drag it away from the raid. If someone has a skull near you, move away from them. Not through
if you get that
gas.
skull, you obviously don't want to run lengthwise down the middle and block our path for the first breath, because it lingers for a little bit.
Question: who has the pattern to make the arcane cloaks?
Sure, someone does.
And then I'll need somebody with the arcane enchant as well.
I think we all got it.
Overall, this is generally thought of as the easiest fight in here. This one and Calico's. Calico's probably easy. If once you have like the portal down, Calico's is probably the same level. It's like learning how the portals work and your assignments. But after that, I would say probably Calico's is going to be on the same level as Fellmister, just not the learning part of it.
And do you want to swear in some arcane resist here as well on this fight?
No. The Encapsulate, I believe, is arcane damage, but I don't think it's necessary. I think if people are topped off, it takes like you have to get hit by Encapsulate 3 times to really die.
Well, we have 3 priests, so circle of healing should be a lot of output.
Yeah, I mean there'll be chain heals, there'll be circle of healing, right? So exactly, and again, we're going to be traveling together to safe areas. So if people see it in a Encapsulate, they need to make sure that they are knowing that group needs to be healed. So, and again, need to save immunities for that. So don't pull aggro and have to ice block. Don't use wings if you're a paladin, because you might have to bubble. Just how it is. So after that, then there'll be some RP, and then this fire here ends up getting dispelled or put out. Next spot's going to be a gauntlet. It's not like a fast spawning gauntlet, but it's still a gauntlet. If you don't clear to the end, then you have to do the whole thing over again. I don't know how fast they respawn, but it's not like super fast. Like you don't have to like rush it. Let's see if I can get to where they actually go. There we go. So there are some new mobs here. So all these mobs are going to be different than the mobs that we had in the first part of the dungeon. Some of the worst ones are going to be, they're going to hear Mana Fiends are going to be really bad, as well as the Soul Binders. But the Soul Binders patrol. So in these groups, you generally want to be killing the Mana Fiends first. So the Mana Fiends do a mana drain that burns 3,000 mana to, I believe it's everyone.
Instant cast, ignores line of sight, like 200-yard range or something. So we just got to get them down.
Yeah, so those will always be burned right away. The other mobs here, there is assassins. They start stealthed. I think that there's a way to get them out with flare. They do a large amount of damage to like just individual targets. Generally, we just tank those until the end. Let's see, the Vanquishers. They are Tank killers, they use melt armor, which reduces armor, obviously. And they also cleave, so those need to be faced away. These guys are generally killed last with the assassins. And then the life shaper is they drain life and they funnel health to other mobs. Once you start pulling these, there's going to be imps that continually spawn from the end of the gauntlet towards the raid. The imps themselves, you don't DPS them. What you do is you tank them. So you just run into them because when they hit someone, they blow up. And so we'll have someone designated in front. I think likely we'll have, they do it here with a hunter, and I kind of like that because then the tanks aren't trying to figure out who's going to go and having people follow them if they're taking a target and melee are following, getting exploded. So I think a hunter just standing in front like this hunter's doing is perfect. So they'll just DPS and just save your, if you happen to get a patrol besides an imp near you, just save your misdirect and misdirect that mob. Otherwise, just attack the imp when it comes in and run into it. So this mob is there's going to be these in patrols. I don't think they're in any groups. They're by themselves. These mind control 5 people, and they also have a frontal AoE. The mind controls, I believe, can be dispelled and purged. There's the imps. You run into imps, they explode. So just make sure that that's being taken care of. As you can see, when they pulled that, it doesn't look like they're friendly. Someone else pulled this afterwards, but the imps don't appear to share, and they don't link the other groups. Here they're pulling these groups rather quickly, which I don't know if they have to pull them this quickly. They probably could have finished off that Deathbringer before moving forward. You can even see someone running up afterwards. Like this other trash hasn't respawned yet, so you don't need to like go crazy with pulling this. You can just pull normal, basically.
It's good because I left a totem at the bottom.
Yeah. The only other mob that is left is when you get to the end, there's going to be a commander. Commander needs to be killed right away. Commander will buff the rest of the group around him, but that's at the end. Until then, you kill the soul binders by themselves. In the groups, you kill the mana fiends first, followed by the life shapers, and then just leave down the rest of them. Not overly dangerous.
Yeah, just play it safe here. Obviously, don't pull aggro and die. Makes it worse than going a little slower.
Once you get to the end, they do stop spawning, though. So you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to re-clear it either, but you have to get to the end. This should be the last leg of it, so we'll just finish watching them do this here real quick. Yeah, getting all at the same time is can be risky. It looks a bit. Yeah, they do lose some people here. I don't know if they meant to pull that intentionally or not, but yeah, probably there. You if you can, you wait because as the commander that I was talking about. So, like I said, the commander buffs their physical damage by 100%. They also stun. So,
yeah, their raid is getting hit.
Yeah, definitely. If you can, you want to try to have that as a clean pull.
First, I'm sorry. Can I bring up something with the last boss really quick? I forgot to mention.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that the AoE, the dot that he puts on people that were mass dispelling, I believe it also goes on pets as well. Can healers see and deal with that, or is that we're SOL?
No, it should be able to. In fact, they'll probably get hit by mass dispel, if not on purpose, on accident. So, but yeah, should be dispelling pets too. There should be plenty of with us having 3 mass dispels that are going to be more than the number of people that actually need to be dispelled. It should be pretty easy for us to dispel manually the pets as well.
I mean, the melee group is what, like 5 people, and then with the pets still under the target cap of mass dispel.
Yeah, I mean there'll be healers in there as well because we want to make sure that there'll be probably 2 healers with the melee, so it'll probably be like 5 melee, 2 healers. But the
pets perfect.
Resist as well.
What was that?
Don't pets have a high chance to resist?
Depend. I don't know what school is it. I don't even know what school the dot it puts up is.
I think it's nature, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, because based on the training, it's like we go heavy nature fire, so they might resist, but if
yeah,
they don't,
gas nova is nature.
They'll die pretty quick.
Yeah, but if we have pet frames up, I mean, definitely should be able to dispel after that, because that's the hard. Is if there's not an encapsulate that's happening right then, like that, there's not really any huge amount of damage going out, so it should be pretty easy to dispel. The only time that might be iffy is if they're trying to heal the tank with corrosion up. Don't you guys get a PvP talent where you can dispel your pet when you mend?
If they're BM, they have it. I don't have it as survival, and my pet res is 10 seconds. So if my pet dies, it's staying dead, sadly. So we lose Screech.
Yeah, so maybe we can have someone watch your pet specifically, but I don't think we should ignore the pets. But I think that since you don't have a way to do it yourself, then it's probably it's worth assigning someone to do that if it doesn't get hit by a mass dispel.
We can just battle res the pet. We won't need it for
I
anything.
like that.
We're all gonna stay alive, right?
Who's gonna click accept the res though?
No, you can normal heal res them and they just stand back up again.
All right, this brings us to the Eredar Twins, one of the harder fights in here. So this is a 2-phase fight. So there's gonna be obviously twins. There's 2 caster. Two casters essentially. What's gonna happen is all the ranged healers and DPS. Well, healers and ranged DPS are going to be stacking up at the top ledge where we first come in here. You'll be able to see them set up where they're set up. You have to be careful about this ledge because you can over jump the ledge and start the fight. So either jump at an angle or turn your walk key on to get up there, like jump and walk, or if you're really good at just tapping forward when you jump, that's fine too. But do whatever is the least likely for you to fall off. There'll be plenty of time for us to set up and do this, so you don't need to just Geronimo and just go for it and hope you land on the ledge. But it's not one of that you simply just walk up. You actually have to get on the ledge. So what will happen is the 2 twins interact with each other's abilities in a way that we need to make sure that we're monitoring both. There's a couple of big abilities. This will be a 3-tank fight. So 2 of the tanks will be tanking. Oh my gosh, I forget which one's which.
Sacrolash is the one we tank.
The shadow one, yeah. So 2 tanks will be on Sacrolash. It's going to be Safina and I. Both of us have to be top 2 threat because she does a disorient that will temporarily drop aggro on the first target, and if a tank's not the second target, then she's going to go kill and run around and do whatever. So that's our DPS target. So you have to make sure that you're behind both tanks at all times. All times you have to be behind both tanks. Because if you think, well, I'll just go above the second tank for a little bit, and then there's a disorient, and you're ranged, and then it runs off, then that's a wipe. And your extra little bit of damage wiped the whole raid. The other boss is going to be tanked by Chetty. So it can be tanked by a Warlock, and they're going to actually tank it with a Warlock here. I prefer to, because we're not going to be switching. We're not going to just have people sit if we can avoid it from who are in the raid. We're not going to say, oh, well, for this boss you need to sit out. So because it can be tanked by Paladin, we will. That allows them. That allows Chetty to have a, I guess you could say, more meaningful role than just sitting here and healing on the fight. And that allows the Warlock to DPS. So it's the harder part of it is that she casts and she leaves down these little fire debuffs. So he'll have to be very careful not to be moving into those. But since nobody's DPSing that boss until the end, threat shouldn't be an issue. So you don't need to be constantly hitting her. In fact, there's no reason to put any damage onto her, because when you kill the first ad, the second ad heals to full. So there's no reason to multi-dot. There's no reason to put a doom on her or anything. I mean, if you want to try to time one for when you think it's about a minute left and we're going to second phase, honestly, I still wouldn't even, because once you get to one boss down, the fight becomes very easy. We really just need to burn Sacrilege. So I honestly don't even doom the other boss. Don't even. Like, I would rather you just put the extra GCD timer into killing Sacrilege, the first target. When we're trying, when we get more comfortable with this fight, we got down a couple of times, you want to parse a little bit, then it's fine, it's whatever. But when we're progressing, don't put anything on. So the bosses each do a couple of things. So they each have a debuff they stack on the raid. Sacrilege, whenever you get hit with anything shadow based, is going to stack a debuff on you that reduces your healing received by 5% per stack, and it keeps adding up until, well, basically you just can't be healed. The Fire Mage, or whatever her name is, but she will stack a fire debuff, Alethis or whatever, will stack a fire debuff on you, and that causes you to take increased fire damage over time whenever it's on you. So the more stacks you have, the more damage you're taking. Now, if you get hit, if you have the shadow debuff on you and you get hit with a fire spell or ability, it removes your shadow debuff, and vice versa. If you have a bunch of fire stacks and a shadow ability hits you, it removes it. So that's, we want to be getting hit by other abilities to clear our stacks. So we want to try to be managing how we're getting hit throughout the fight. So the main ways that people generally get hit and remove their stacks is Sacrilege will do a Shadow Nova that will target someone. A lot of the times it will target the ranged, and it will deal damage in an area. And am I thinking of the right one, or is it it's Shadow Nova, right? No, it's is it the other one? Shadow Fury.
Yeah, Shadow Nova is targeted around them.
Okay, so it's targeted. Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's the targeted ability. Yeah.
Spell.
So Shadow Nova will hit someone and everyone around them. So what's going to happen is, if everyone's stacked up here, if they're getting fire debuffs, then once that Shadow Nova hits, then all of everyone's fire debuff for Flame Touch is going to be removed. It'll happen enough where you don't have to worry about it. If you find that because of movement, and we'll go over the second, that you miss that, and your stacks are getting high, you can jump down and get hit by some other ability from Sacrilege in order to move your stacks and then come back up. So just something to keep in mind. So the general ability that will clear your shadow debuffs is Flame Seer. So Flame Seer will hit 5 random people at a time, and it puts a dot on you that deals damage over 6 seconds. And then she'll just, she'll hit 5 people, and then every once in a while she'll hit 5 other people. If you go too long without getting hit, easiest way to remove it, to force it to be removed, is whenever she's attacking her main tank target, which you'll see, I'm just gonna let this run until they actually pull, is she'll leave like little fire patches on the ground. And very easy for melee, but also for ranged, if you absolutely must, you could jump down and eat one of the flame patches. So those flame patches are, you can see up here. She's going to cast these frequently. Every time she does a cast onto the main tank, whoever's taking her, she'll leave one of those patches behind. So you see,
and Chetty should have a couple of them, not on melee, but within distance, so you guys can just duck in and out.
So biggest wiper of the whole raid is going to be this ability, Conflag. So it's a 3.5 second cast. You get a lot of time to know that it's happening. There's probably going to be a raid marker. We're going to be yelling at you. She targets you. You have to pay attention to this. With Conflag, it's going to hit you and then anyone around you, and you're going to be disoriented for 10 seconds and dealing a bunch of damage. If this hits up at the top or even at the melee, if it hits more than like one other person, basically, it's probably a wipe. So what's going to happen is melee, you're going to run out. So if she starts casting on you, you're going to run away. You're going to run out to the side. Don't run in the way back over here, because you're going to be out of range of the healers. You just want to run to the side. So you just want to run over to the left here and then come back to the boss after you're done being conflagged. The ranged at the top, you're just going to run straight backwards. So you're not going to jump down. You're just going to go back towards the door. And you don't need to go like really far. You just need to be like 15 yards away. So the healers can still
get there
reach you.
quickly.
Yeah, you need to move immediately. Don't finish your cast. Just go. Like, stop whatever you're doing and run away. It will still hit you. Even though you move out of LOS, it'll still hit you. Now, it can be avoided. So if you immune before she actually hits you with it, or if you feign, or if you vanish, or you bubble, block, whatever. If you have an immunity or a way for her to generally stop targeting you, then she'll stop casting it. And she won't start casting it again like some bosses will immediately start casting their ability on someone else. It just eats up the timer, and then she goes back to casting and doing whatever again. So if you have a way to avoid this, save your ability for it, because the damage that you can avoid from this is huge. The time we spend trying to, like, even if you get out, like, not having to heal it is really good, because there's a lot of damage. This is going to be the fight has a lot of healing, probably the highest healing fight in here. So if you can avoid just taking that damage, it's really useful to the rest of the raid.
Hunters just know that, as you know better than most, feign death can be resisted. So don't stand on top of the raid, wait till the cast gets low, feign or something.
We have to do it immediately, and then if she's still casting, we just get out, right? And we're not decasting back there, right? We're just sitting there.
Or week one, possibly even just cast it like after running out, whatever, but it has to be fast.
Okay, yeah, we can just do it after we run out to be safe. That would be easier.
Or if you do it immediately, it's 3.5 seconds. Yeah, but you just have to be really fast if you try that.
Take no chances. Okay.
And make sure if you guys like toggle walk to get on the ledge, you toggle it off during the fight.
Please.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So another thing that Althus will do is she puts a buff on herself, and this is going to be particularly for card. If you can try to make sure that you're watching it, if you have ever warning or whatever, because if you don't, it has to be dispelled. So the best way is to get rid of it with a spell steal. It's called Pyrogenics. So that increases her fire damage she deals by 35% for 15 seconds, and you can spell steal it. So having our fire mage with that would probably be ideal.
And that's on the fire one, right?
Yes.
Which we're killing second, because we we'll have to watch arcane shots because we'll end up nabbing it off of her if we're not careful with it.
Well, no, that's fine. Like, it can't be on her for more than a second. So
Okay.
it's ideal if Cardi gets it, but if you guys happen to take it off, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like, if he doesn't take it off immediately, we want the shamans or priests to do it anyways.
Right, has to be removed because otherwise she's gonna start doing a bunch of damage to Chetty. Also, it's not just Chetty. Also, it improves all of her damage. So the flame seer she's throwing on the raid if anyone gets a conflag that hits them, all that's increased by 35% if she has it up. So it has to be removed quickly. So if it doesn't get spell stolen within like the first like second or so, it does have to be dispelled. Now the I don't know if to trying to pay attention to see it. I wasn't really looking for it. Sacrilege is going to summon ads. Let me see if I can find where it shows any ads on here. Trying to look, I don't see them. They could be buried there. They're not targetable. So she summons 2 ads that do her abilities. They do Shadow Fury and they do Dark Strike. There's Dark Strike's just a damage with a dot component, and they also do Shadow Fury. Then stun. So, but you can't do anything about it. You're just gonna have to just take it. But it's another way that
they just ran up there.
Oh, they ran up again. It's another way that you can get hit because those are both shadow damage. So it's another way that you can reset your fire stacks. So there's nothing you can do about them being around. They're just there. So, but that's another way that melee are constantly getting hit by those abilities whenever they happen. So it's not usually a big deal. I think they're wiping here, but let me go ahead and go to actually pull and kill her. 312. So they're here for a while.
As you can see by the length of this video, and these guys have done this place a bunch, bring a ton of consumes. We will be dying.
Perfect opportunity to use all those flasks.
Yeah, and she'll do Shadow Blade, which is damage all around her. So the melee are going to be getting hit with that. So melee shouldn't have any issues clearing their stacks with the Shadow because they're constantly getting hit. Clearing fire debuffs, I should say. If your Shadow debuffs stack up too much, though, you'll have to melee. You just run over into these fire pits real quick, get a quick damage real fast and move out. So if you notice your shadow stacks going up, I don't really know where the safe spot is. I would say probably like once you get past like 5-6 stacks, maybe less if you're a tank. I don't know. They can stack up pretty quick if you don't get a fire debuff though. So like here it has 5 here. Obviously I got disoriented 6 or 5-7. So this is already like 35% less healing, 40% less healing. So he has to go eat fire to get it off. So that's something you want to pay attention to. Generally, like I said, you won't have any trouble getting rid of the fire debuff as melee. It'll be the shadow debuff that you need to worry about clearing.
And for range, the ads will normally just spawn right before they get to our range stack. Unless someone keeps pulling aggro like that, she gets closer.
But we're putting all of our damage into Sacrilege. So the biggest thing really is healers just pumping here because there's a ton of damage going out the whole fight. Everyone kind of monitoring their debuffs and making sure that you're trying to see if you can find a way to clear it if it gets unreasonable. A lot of the times, your debuffs are going to get cleared automatically by the various damage that's going out, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And just try and get the Sacrilege down as fast as possible. Now, once Sacrilege is dead, everyone can jump down. What we'll do is we'll actually stack. By this point, remember, no damage has been going into Alethus. So Chetty should have a good lead here, even though he hasn't been able to like straight tank the boss. Like all the shield throws, and I think it's a demon, right? So exorcisms or whatever that you can put in, even just dropping like a consecrate up there, whatever. Should be able to have enough threat lead by when it gets to this point that you can just burn and you don't have to worry about threat, even though he's still going to be avoiding the boss where he can.
There's not going to be a healing threat issue with that, is there?
They'll be the closest to Chetty, but he should still be able to out-threat them.
Well, he'll have red aura and thorns as well for passive.
Those don't proc off of ranged attacks.
Yeah, and range tanking as a pally, that's the only thing I'd see as a word.
No,
he can go in and hit her.
Yeah.
He just has to stay away from the other group.
Whenever the fire is cleared, he can do like a little semicircle where he like hits her and judges her and consecrates. And then it's just to get out until like the fire clears again and just use like judges and shit and shield or whatever. But like once the fire, like, because it doesn't stick around a long time, it sticks around for a little while. Like you'll probably have like 5-6 of those flame patches up, so you'll be able to do a little rotation where you go in and then you got to come back out and move away. Hardest part's going to be once so this tanking part's going to be the hardest part because there's not any more shadow damage going out except for one ability, which is the Shadow Nova, which is probably not going to target the main tank. So the only way that Chetty can clear his mark or his flame debuff that's stacking over and over and over again from getting hit is he has to get close enough to get hit with the Shadow Nova, but not close, not like in the group where he's dropping a blaze. So he'll want to be like 10 yards away from the group, just get with the Shadow Nova and then move back out again to clear his stack. And I believe she stops conflagrating in that phase too.
Yeah, it looks like everyone's able to safely stack, and Chetty is the only one that has to move.
Yeah, you don't have to, once you stack, you just stack. I'm pretty sure that there's not any conflag anymore. But once you get to that phase, it's easy. Just as long as the tank doesn't forget to clear his stacks. Hardest part is just the first ad, making sure that we're DPSing it, making sure everyone's watching their stacks, not letting them get too high. If they start to get too high because you haven't been able to get a spell for a while to hit you, you need to find a way to drop them, either one of them, because like a healing, even if you're not taking damage that second, having a healing debuff on you, and then like the whole raid's taking damage, but maybe you've got like 10 stacks of healing debuff, that's really going to stress the healers. So you'll have to find a way. Melee, like I said, it should be very easy. You're never going to have to worry about fire debuff because you're probably going to constantly get hit by shadow, but you may have to clear shadow by stepping into fire. Ranged DPS and healers, probably most of the time you're going to be fine with your fire debuff, but the only way your shadow debuff's really being cleared is if you happen to get hit by the Flame Seer or a Conflag. Conflag is just a random person every once in a while, so I wouldn't count on that. You want to avoid it even if possible. So the Flame Seer is going to hit 5 random people. That's going to be your only like real way to clear it. If you don't get hit with a Flame Seer for a while, then you'll have to jump down and just get a flame and then go back up. And also, if you don't get hit with, if you get hit with fire a bunch of times and you just, for whatever reason, the Shadow Novas aren't going up, or you missed one. So let's say you get conflagged and you had to run away, and the Shadow Nova hit the whole group, so everyone's good except for you. You still have all your debuffs from the fire because you weren't close enough to get hit by the Shadow Nova. You might have to jump down and stand near the boss and get hit by one of her abilities. If you just stand near Sacrilege, you're going to get hit by something Shadow. So pretty easy. But lots of healing on this fight. Big healing fight. Make sure you have your consumes. Make sure you have lots of potions, dark runes. Like, you need to be full consumed for this fight.
Yeah, this one's like 10 to 20,000 damage per second spikes between that all fight long.
Yeah, and along with a various levels of healing debuff. So even though there's like a ton of damage, you're trying to heal that with like a partial or maybe even a full mortal strike debuff up.
And with the mechanic that if you're slow to react, you might wipe the whole raid to think about too. So there's a lot for you.
Yeah, the healers, it's hard for there, especially because you're trying to like spam out and keep people alive, and maybe you space and don't notice it can flag, and then you just wipe the whole raid. So yeah, a very hard boss. After this, there's very limited trash. Like I said, this whole instance, there's not a lot of trash, honestly. Most of the trash is before Calicos, and then in that little gauntlet that you have on the way to the Twins. There's some trash here, but on the way to Muru, but it's not a lot.
I was told 2 hours max.
That's a lie.
You get through here in 2 hours if you one shot everything.
I was talking about the review. I'm just kidding.
Oh, sorry for over.
We just have to wing it from here.
Calicos is, I was going to say Calicos, Twins, and Moro. There's just a lot. And KJ, there's just a lot to explain. One of the early kills in TBC, I know they used these Infernals. They like pulled them up and banished them and then let them go to drop the shadow debuff or something. Not worth doing, just interesting.
Yeah, so when these come in, it's going to be the Destroyer, and then there's going to be 2 mages. You can really see the mages over there. We kill the mages first. They polymorph multiple people, and they stack Flame Buffet. So they die pretty quickly, so we'll kill them first. That'll be Sally and I. And then this boss over here keeps spawning adds, these shards. The shards, actually, when they're killed, they buff the main guy. So you don't even really want to be AoEing. You just want to kill the main guy and then kill the shards. So, because if you kill these first, each one that you kill is going to make him stronger. So do not AoE those first. Melee, don't go in for these. You just AoE these because they explode. And if they all explode at the same time, good chance that some melee will die. So you got another mage in here. Priestess of Torment, as well as a Painbringer.
Wait, is that the reflect?
No, I don't think they reflect. At least not that I remember. So the Painbringer will do increasing damage, but they can be disarmed. And then the Priestess will do Whirlwind and Threat Drops. What we'll do is we'll kill the Priestess first because those Threat Drops are really annoying. And then we'll kill the Painbringer. Actually, we'd probably kill the... no, we still kill the Priestess because if they get into the raid, they're just gonna do a lot of damage. Be a Priestess first, then the Mage, then the Painbringer. Overall, not a big deal. And then next is going to be the Apocalypse Guards. These guys cleave, but they should still be just... I mean, the 2 tanks can just tank them facing the same way. It's not a big deal. As long as like the melee's not getting cleaved. They do Death Coil, so I'll make sure that you're not going to get Death Coiled into a patrol or something. They stun the tanks and do a bunch of damage to them. Oh, there's a dog right behind them. And then when they get low, they become immune to everything but holy damage, and only holy damage can kill them. So when they get to like 1% or whatever it is, they have to be killed by paladins and priests, smite and hammer wrath and whatever. The hound here, it puts up several debuffs. It has a lot of debuffs that it does, and it puts up a lot of them constantly. So these need to be dispelled. Ideal dispellers are actually paladins, because their one dispel will remove up to 3 different things. Obviously, they can't remove curses, but being able to get rid of a magic, a poison, and a disease all with one cast is really strong. But yeah, a lot of dispelling that needs to happen with this, and definitely don't want to be pulling that at the same time as the other mobs. You probably pull that 2-pack backwards a little bit. That way you don't get death coiled into him.
Yeah, because they need their priests and pallies to finish that Apocalypse Guard and not have to worry about dispelling yet.
Yeah. Let's move forward a little bit here. More of these imps, you just AoE these down, no melee. And 2 more of these guards, same thing. They death coil, they cleave, they stun. Okay, we get to Muru, which is generally thought of as the hardest boss. Could be these are twins, but a lot of people say this is the hardest boss. So Muru is a lot of ad management on this fight. So there's a lot of things going on in this fight. So there's Muru himself, which doesn't really do too much himself, at least in the first phase. There's going to be, it's not one of those fights where there's like constant damage going out. He'll hit a few random people for 1,000 damage constantly, but it's just extra damage. You just have to heal. It's not anything like devastating. It's just random annoying damage. He does just stand there until the second phase, so doesn't move, doesn't do anything, doesn't attack other than just hitting a few random people every now and then. So there's no tank, there's no threat or anything in this phase here, so you can just go crazy. So what's going to happen is when you first pull, it'll be just him. You'll have some time to DPS, and this is when you're trying to get the most damage you can on him. We are not using heroes because we're going to need them for the end, but short of that, any like 2-minute cooldowns or anything, definitely worthwhile to use at this point at the beginning of the fight. Just pumping some damage into him. So let me get to the video where they actually kill him, so we can kind of walk through it together. Order 52. Took them a while to get this down this time. All right, so has a fairly large aggro range, I think. So, but you can still move in the room, and you have to move in the room because the door does lock. All of like the range DPS and the healers are all going to just be stacking up in front of him, like where the like in front of the door here. You'll see, everyone's going to stack together as there for the ranged. Melee will rotate based on whatever the kill target's at. At the beginning, you're just killing Muru. You're just putting as much damage as you can, because you get to the second phase once he hits 0. So there'll be different sets of ads that spawn. First thing that comes in is these humanoids. You'll get a group of 3 at the front and the back. Always at the front and back. So there'll be one that comes in at the doorway and one at this side. The 2 berserkers that do a pretty good amount of damage to whoever they're hitting. They buff themselves occasionally, do more damage. No cleave though, so you don't have to worry about that. But they do a good amount of physical damage. And then the mage. The mage will have to be dispelled. Ideally spell stolen, because he has an ability that causes his next 5 casts to do 50% more damage, but he also can't move. 1, we don't want him to do more damage, and 2, we do need him to move because we need to stack him up. So he does need to be dispelled, and we're going to have assigned interrupts too. So it'll probably be a mage assigned to the back, a mage assigned to the front to spell steal and counterspell. as soon as they cast so that we can group them up. So what we want to do is be pulling them in. We don't want to. So I've seen guides where they say just have the tanks both stand back here, wait for the mobs to come to them. I honestly think that we have to do it like this, where one tank goes and picks it up and drags them back, because if you're waiting until they get all the way back here to the group, which they will, then you're trying to overcome, thousands of healing aggro on 3 mobs. I think you do have to go engage them and bring them back. Here they do group them all up on Muru, which I think is fine if you're DPSing Muru. If like darkness isn't for a while. So this is the darkness ability here. It's going to be happening in 10 seconds. Once that happens, then this whole area around Muru, you cannot stand in. Nobody can stand in there. It's going to do 3,000 damage a second. And if you're in there, you can't be healed. So nobody can stand in here. So when we pull them out, then what will have to happen is these mages will have to be interrupted. So if the priests have already counterspelled, really anybody with an interrupt should interrupt. Now, as soon as darkness spawns, and this is every time darkness spawns, as soon as darkness happens, there's going to be these dark fiends here that spawn all around. You can see there was 8 of them. The only way to get rid of them is by having them hit you, which explodes and basically wipes the raid or does a bunch of damage to the raid, or dispel. Dispels and purges kill them. So if you put a mass dispel directly in the middle, it will hit all of them. But you need to make sure that that's landing as soon as the darkness comes up. So that'll take some practice for someone to do that. There might be a chance that we miss 1 or 2 of them the few times when we're trying to get used to that. So shamans, please make sure that you're purging. Priest, like single target dispel if there's any remaining after this. So they'll just run off to someone and chase them, and if they hit them, then they explode. They just one shot just kills them with a dispel or a purge. Second mob that spawns, and I kind of miss it here, but there's a big void walker that spawns. The big void walker is going to do a void blast, which needs to be grounded. So there's going to be a paladin assigned to Cheddy's going to be assigned to tank that mob because all these ads come out, and that void bolt or void blast is going to have to be grounded because it does a ton of damage. It does 10,000 and slows. So alternatively, I'm thinking about it because I can tank that too because it can be spell reflected. It really depends on how we want to deal with these ads. If we think that we can kill them with just a slow and not have to worry about necessarily tanking them right away, then I can probably tank those void ads and leave Chetty to get like 3 of the ads that come in one side or the other. Because the void blast can also be spell reflected. So we'll have to. I'm gonna have to think about how exactly I want to do that with tanks. But essentially, you kill the big guy. These smaller void spawns come out. These can and should be enslaved by the warlocks. We'll give you assist rights, and we'll have a macro. We'll create a macro for you guys to have your mark set up so you can know who's doing which one. Because these also do a lot of AoE damage. They have AoE Nova or AoE Shadow Bolt volleys, and that's the reason we want to kill them quickly, but we also want to be able to use them to our benefit with 4, maybe even 5 warlocks.
Yeah, Libet's got the macro and caster DPS for any locks that want to get on it. We'll change the numbers later.
But yeah, so you'll see wherever there. It's kind of hard to see it at the top here, but you'll see it more later. There's these like gates that spawn where the void guys are going to come out. There is so the fight is dealing constantly with ads, and when possible, trying to squeeze in some damage on Muru. So the primary source of damage on Muru is going to be a lot of the time the melee whenever the darkness is gone. When the darkness is gone, the ads will try to be pulled to the boss so that we can cleave off of that and hit the boss. Casters are going to be constantly busy killing the void elementals as well as AoEing the ads. When you can, definitely you can put some damage into DPSing the boss, but you cannot get behind on the ads or you wipe. So don't think, oh, well, if we just push the boss faster, then we'll be good. No. We may even have to wait to kill the boss if we're not in a good ad cycle. And the timing between the ads is really tight. You're not going to have like a ton of time in DPS. Mostly it's going to be the melee that are going to have the ability to do that. Because like the range, as soon as like the ads are dead, like the humans are dead, then a void spawns. And as soon as like the void is dead, now there's all of a sudden there's like humans to kill. And it's like a never ending cycle of like you have to kill ads. I would say like it makes sense for probably single target a lot of the time when there's AoE going on to hit Muru. Shadow Priests, Hunters, like you're not going to be, when there's like a bunch of Void Elementals, you're not going to be contributing as much as like a Warlock is with Seeds, right? Or like a Mage with like AoE.
Yeah, especially energy, I'd say. Keep single target, because you're going to need to save mana for those mass dispels. And that way you're giving the healers a little more help if you're staying on the boss more.
I thought that's why we recruited Mosaic.
But as you can see, there's like almost no time in between there being some ads out. So what you want to try to do is get the boss low into a point where you're nearly killing ads, and then you push them and finish the ads. Because once you push the boss over, ads stop spawning, but you don't want to have to deal with a bunch of ads when he spawned. He'll go into phase 2. So this just repeats over and over. So general priority is melee. Your general priority is killing these ads when you can. When darkness is gone, you're going to be cleaving off of them and killing the boss. Ranged, your primary attack target is going to be the voids. The big void, followed by killing the void spawns, killing then the human ads. If all of that's dead, then adding additional damage to Muru. Making sure that we're interrupting the mages, making sure we're spell stealing them when they get the buff, gathering them all together. Priest, very important to make sure that we're mass dispelling those ads. So every time the darkness comes up, it always happens when the darkness ends, all those ads come up. It's a very reliable timer for when that happens. Once it goes into phase 2, then, like I said, no more ads. I'm just trying to wait for them to actually switch over. I think they're trying to like give it like 3 waves here. It's like a while they're waiting.
Yeah, phase 2 hurts, so you need a really clean transition.
Yeah, so phase 2, I'll just start talking about phase 2. What will happen is the boss actually has an aggro table in phase 2. So misdirects need to be taking him. This is when we use heroes. This is when we go all out. So the boss, his biggest thing is that AoE that he was doing to random people. Every so often, like you can see the little tendrils he's throwing out. That happens in the next phase. Initially it hits only like 6 people, but then each time he does it, it hits another person. So when it hits 7 people, and then 8 people, and then 9, until it's like hitting the whole raid, and you just can't keep up with it because the whole raid's just getting spammed with too much damage. So it's like a softened rage timer. So it's how long can you go before the raid's just dead. There'll be a couple of other newer abilities. So there will be still the darkness, but instead of it being all around him, it's going to be randomly under someone. So there'll be a black puddle underneath you. Need to move out of that and making sure that you're not running into it as well. It'll spawn those dark fiends that need to be removed. Now, in this phase, it's up to Energy and Shibuti and Julia and Jump if he's enhanced. Like the DPS, it's your job to kill those. It's your job to purge those and dispel those, because the healers are going to be busy. They cannot spare globals to dispel those. So the DPS have to be purging those, have to be dispelling those.
It's a singular.
Just look at the
debuff,
raid
right?
frames.
Singular dispel.
Okay, so we get Arcane Shadow 2 to help if we have to.
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's this orb here, the singularity. So this singularity will move around the room. You need to avoid this. It will suck you up and move you around and stop you from doing anything. And you'll take damage while you're in there. So try to avoid those. Those will move around the room. But yeah, you can see they barely kill it. Probably another few seconds and the whole raid would have wiped. Although I will say, if you had to choose, you probably, like, you were forced to decide, am I going to save a DPS or another healer? You'd probably save another healer because that there's with more people dead, the healing actually becomes a little more relieved because then there's less people to have to worry about healing. But so if you have like a bunch of healers up and only a couple of DPS and a tank, technically you could just keep going. As long as you had mana, that is. So, any questions or anything?
Are we gonna 3 tank him just to be safe?
Yes. Yes. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be getting the voids or one of the groups. You'll definitely be getting one of the groups, but either Chetty or me is going to be getting the other group of the humans. I think what I'm going to have is Chetty at the door, getting those ads. I will pick up the voids, like, because I can just spell reflect the void blast, so we don't have to worry about shamans keeping an eye out for the timing on that. And then the ads, I mean, even with Chetty there, we don't really tank them. We just kill them. So really all we need is like a slow whenever they're up, and then we just still AoE them.
Yeah, if we need to, we could use frost grenades on them as well.
Yeah, so I think that's what we'll do is I'll tank the voids and then have Chetty tank the ones at the one near the door, and then have you grab the ones at the back and pull them. And then when the darkness is not there, you'll be tanking them near Muru to cleave off of. And then when darkness is getting ready to come up, you need to pull them back to the healers and the range DPS. And then need to interrupt them. So shamans and mages need to make sure that you're interrupting so you pull them out of the darkness. There will be a mage assigned to each side for interrupts and spell steals. After this, there's a couple of mobs. It doesn't actually show them on the stream here, but they're similar to the Doomwalker. If anyone's had the privilege of actually doing Doomwalker, does like ground slams and charges. So just a lot of raid damage. But there's 2 of those, then it goes to the boss. So we don't get to see them, but they are there.
I know on early PTR, the ground slam only did damage if you're on the ground, so jumping would actually prevent them. I don't know if it's been fixed or not.
I feel like I remember that was a thing in live back in vanilla.
All right, and last boss, Kill Jaden. Not considered the hardest boss, but still not the easiest boss in here. First phase is just these 3 ads. These 3 ads we're going to just pull all together. So these can be stunned. They can be silenced. They do an AoE Shadow Bolt volley that does more damage each time it hits. Now, ideally, we want to kill 1 at a time because when they get to 20%, they can no longer be stunned or silenced. So we want to just, like, cleaving's... We still want to cleave when it's convenient, but you don't necessarily want to be, like, doing... like seeds and shit. Like I'm talking about like warrior cleave and like rogue cleave and shit like that, multi-shot. But like generally you want to be focusing single target DPS on them. They also spawn imps that explode. They only explode within 10 yards. So you don't need to move like real far away. You just need to, if you see one spawn, just move away from it a little bit. Like the range is pretty small. But ideally you just want to kill all of them. Use arcane bombs, use stuns, and you kill them. When we pull the boss, you can see they pull to the opposite side. So like where they ran in is on the other side here. Reason is because the orbs tend to take a path that goes along the back here, so it makes sense to tank on this side. So so once you kill the 3 ads, phase 2 starts. What we're going to do is we're going to have probably a pretty similar position as this. Melee will be in a general area together, and then they will move based on the mechanic. We'll have one set of casters on the left, one set of casters on the right. Probably mages left, warlocks right, and then healers more or less stacked and hunters scattered behind the tank here. There'll be some healers that are scattered on the sides too, just make sure that melee aren't dying and such. But general position will be melee here, range DPS on the back, left and right. So mages left, warlocks right, spread out. So the boss doesn't parry or dodge at all because he's casting the entire time. Melee can be moved up, so you don't all have to necessarily be stacked. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, but you could be like up around the front here. It's not a big deal. If you wanted to fan out around the front, you're not going to lose DPS. Just make sure that what you want to ideally do is have somewhere safe to be. So there's 2 ways to do it. One, everyone can stack, and then as soon as someone gets Fire Bloom, which is similar to like the Vosh ability, where you do damage to everyone around you, then you get out right away. Also, instead, could just spread out, which we will probably, I think about, we'll probably just do that instead of having a big group in the stack. We'll probably just have melee spread throughout the front here, just so that it's easier for the healers to reach, and then there's less chance you have to move away from each other. We don't have like a ton of melee, so it should be pretty easy. We'll do that instead of stacking back here. The boss has like new abilities each phase, and he retains the current abilities, and then he has new ones. First phase, he just uses this soul flay on the main tank frequently. That's just, he just does that. He does a chain lightning that will hit 5 people, and then he does that Fire Bloom, which I was talking about, which will hit someone, and then that person just needs to move away from people so they're not hitting them, like Bosch. He'll also summon, it's hard to see them, you'll see them later. There'll be these shadow orbs that like float above and kind of go around the outside. Just zooming out a little bit, maybe you'll see them. Those shoot shadow bolts at random people. Those are, here, you can see that up here. So these you want to kill right away as ranged. If it's on your side, you want to focus these down. They die quickly. But if you let them get out of hand, then the raid will be taking a bunch of damage. So that's the first phase. Phase 2 happens at 85%. So at 85%, he does a few new things. So he'll do Sinister Reflection, which he'll pick a random person, some 4 copies of them, give them whatever, they have the abilities of that class. Those need to be tanked. Now, you cannot DPSs right away. We need to wait for the tanks to get there because they don't activate until they take damage. So if you just start like AoEing right away before a tank gets there, they're going to run all over. People are probably going to die. So wait until tanks actually pick them up. Once tanks pick them up, then you can kill them. You still don't want to run all over and like group up. Melee don't want to come over here because there's still other AoE consideration to take into account. So just if you're on that side, then just DPS them. Try to pull them close to kill Jaden so we can like seed off of them and kill them. But this just is generally what we want to do with the ants, is pull them in so that we can just AoE them down. He'll do an ability called Shadow Spike, which you can see here. See this purple thing? He'll start channeling, and then this is one of the reasons we want to stay spread as well. They'll slowly fly towards whatever destination they're. You want to move away from that, so you shouldn't be getting hit like that guy. So there's plenty of time to move. So if you see it coming out, then you move. The only person that have trouble with it is probably the melee, but anyone ranged, you can see it moves real slow. That guy has plenty of time to move. But melee will have a harder time of it, I would say. And then he also does flame darts, which are, it hits everyone in the raid for damage, and then shortly after that, you explode and deal damage to anyone around you. It will not do the second part of that if you are immune to movement slows, though. So in this phase, starting from now on, there will be one of these orbs around the room. There's these orbs that are scattered through. Oh, there's one over here somewhere. I think it's that one, but it's already taken. So these orbs will occasionally get activated. We'll have someone assigned to go get those. Probably Vec, because he has sprint and engineering boots. So he's the most mobile person. It's easiest for him to get to those. What will happen is we're going to have everyone stack at certain points in order to get breathed on. There's 2 breaths that he uses. One is a breath that will give you health and mana over 10 seconds. It's a lot of mana and health, mostly mana over 10 seconds. The other one is a haste buff that increases your attack, casting, movement speed all by 25%. And it makes you immune to movement impairing abilities, which means that if you have that buff on you, that the flame darts don't explode. So if you group everyone up, you hit everyone with that, then if the flame darts hit, you don't have to worry about it exploding the raid, but you still want to spread back out because there's other AoE damage. And then next phase will start at 55%. Oh yeah, he also has darkness of there's more ability here. This is a big ability. Is darkness of 1,000 souls. So when this ability is coming up, what will happen is it's a 8-second cast. So when this happens, everyone needs to group up right in front of him. The exception are anybody that has the fire bloom. Anyone with fire bloom should get near the group, but not on top of the group. Someone jumped in here, which they shouldn't have. You want to, everyone groups except for the people with fire bloom, you want to be close-ish. Once this shield goes up, which is going to be cast by the person with the dragon, then you can move in. This shield reduces all damage by 95%. Only lasts 5 seconds, so you cannot cast it too early because this channel is 8 seconds. So if you cast the shield as soon as his wings go up, then it won't be there when he casts it. And if that shield is necessary, anyone outside of that bubble, when he finishes casting Darkness of 1,000 Souls, will die. So what will happen is, as soon as he starts casting that ability, everyone groups up right on the tank, except for Fire Bloom, which we stand about 15 yards away. We breathe both breaths on the raid. You can probably do them like 5-6 seconds out. Just do. If you don't hit everybody, that's fine. Don't wait for everybody to get there. It's fine just to get most of the raid with those, and then make sure the shield is up in time. Like make sure it's up a couple seconds before he actually does his ultimate ability. Then once he finishes it, then everyone spreads back out. And then the next phase will be at 55%. He will get a couple of new abilities. Actually, I think just one ability. Let me check here.
Just Armageddon, I think, and just more orbs.
Right. Instead of one orb at a time, there'll be 3 orbs at a time. So there'll be more orbs that have to be killed. Again, they die easily, but you have to actually kill them. And because they move, and we're not trying to have people chase them. You just need to constantly be looking up. You definitely have to have your camera out a lot for this fight, as well as making sure that's kind of upward so that you can see a lot of abilities are something you would see from almost directly down. Like you can almost turn your camera straight down at yourself, or at a acute angle at least. So same thing happens at the start of every phase turn. There's the reflections come back out. So 55% more reflections. Again, they have the abilities of whatever class they take over. Bring them in. Once they're in, then start AoEing. But remember, it keeps all the same abilities as before. Orbs will be active. We'll make sure to get that. We'll group up appropriately and make sure that we're buffing the raid before the Darkness of 1,000 Souls or whatever. New ability here is the Armageddon. Has he done it yet?
I haven't seen one on screen, so I don't think so.
Well, there's supposed to be a new ability here if he ever does it. There it is. So he starts dropping these meteors down from above. They damage like by like 10,000 whoever they hit. But the good news is super easy to know, especially if you have your camera zoomed out. But also, we'll probably get a better visual of it. But the ground where it's at is like this hellfire effect, ish effect. So it's pretty easy to see around your character if you're paying attention. So the souls here, everyone groups up. Guy barely gets in there in time. And then spread back out. Here you can see it on the ground. You can see it here. This is where it's going to land, those meteors. So you need to move out of those. So if you see this on the ground, get out. Druid's going to get hit. Oh.
So how's that blue dragon? Like, who's in charge of that?
It's going to be Vec. However, we need a second person for the last phase. Because in the last phase, when he hits 25%, same abilities. But there's all 4 of the orbs are available, and you can have 2 dragons at once. And so it's really useful to have those for buffing and healing, and you'll need the multiple shields because he does the darkness in the last phase. He does it every 25 seconds to every 45 seconds. And it's kind of a burn. You'll run out of shields eventually, so you can't sit forever in this phase. But I think when they kill it, they still have 2 shields left. So it's more like if like half your raid's dead going into it, then maybe you have an issue. But if you get to this point with like all or most of your raid alive, then the amount of shields is not going to be an issue. More just making sure that they're up in time and just making sure that the whoever's doing the dragons knows which one of them is going to be using their shield, so they don't double them up.
Yeah, and people with movement speed, like I said, Vec doing the first one's good. Mages are solid with Blink, maybe a Feral. But anyone could run over and click an orb if we're desperate. And Verse called for it.
Now, there's not a duration on the Dragon Ride, but doesn't their health go down when they do that shield?
Yeah. They have a limited amount of things they can absorb.
Yeah. I think you have enough for a shield and 2 of each breath that you can do. So you can do like a big breath on the raid, and then you can breathe on people outside of that. I would say like for the health and mana one, either hitting a group of people, any group of people if you hit multiple, or people that have mana issues. So potentially healers or like arcane mages. If energy's low on mana, could be a good target for energy as well because you can get mana for other people. But yeah, anyone that you can get it on is good. Just making sure that you have the ability to use it when the group stacks. Again, when the group's all getting together, we don't necessarily have to. Not everyone necessarily has to get hit, but you definitely have to have the shield up in time. So, like I said, whenever it's like when he starts casting, give it like 3 seconds, and then I would probably use the healing rejuvenation breath first, and then the haste buff. The haste buff is more important than the rejuvenation one. So if you want to hit more people with haste than rejuvenation. So definitely always do the rejuve one first, and then haste, and then shield. But yeah, you just repeat that, and then he dies. It looks like there's a lot going on, but it's really not that bad. Biggest thing is making sure that you're stacking and not stacking at the appropriate times. Whoever's doing the dragons, making sure they're timing their shields right, and just moving out of meteors and killing the orbs. It's
Yeah, don't get greedy after these bubbles and try to just stand and nuke. Go back to your spot and then nuke.
That's Sunwell. All right.
Are you
Any?
gonna go over the attunement or no?
Oh yeah, did you guys make sure you get your attunements done before then? Because we only have a couple of days left until it releases.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's everything. So